Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Hello, children. I have two very special guests today. I have Carl from Black Label Logic, and I have Rian Stone with me today. I'm going to pick up on a conversation we were having yesterday. Well, actually, it wasn't me, but a conversation these guys were having yesterday, and something I think is pertinent to the discussion in red pill terms. So today I'm going to talk about the hustle economy. We're going to talk about the slog, and are you a hustler? There we go. That's for you. It's all for you guys. There. Now I'm going to unmute you. You're probably going to get echo. Wow, Ryan, you look fantastic. Look at your camera.
Yeah. Dude, that new thing is, there's the echo. Yeah, the new camera was showing you. Once I ran through the tests, I could up this to like 60 frames a second if I wanted, but I like the film quality.
I have that camera now, actually. I have the camera. I'm still kind of working out the lighting for it because it's like this one, the Logi that I'm in right now, I have to really monkey with the lighting to make it look right. The other one is too dark, so now I have to like really shine a lot of light on it.
Well, you have the three knobs on the side. The middle one's for opening up your iris. That'll help, but you'll lose some depth of field, but it'll be way better in lower light.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try that. And I've got Carl from Black Label Logic. Carl, how many scotches have you had so far?
Oh, well, none today. But you see why people ask, like, why are you on? Why don't you show your face? Because I don't want to enter my podcast with rock music, then start geeking out about lights with some random dude that has one of those Instagram ass model lights shining in his face right now.
I'm just going to describe everything that's happening right now with a sarcastic tone because I'm not 17.
So I wanted to pick up a conversation. We're just going to jump right in today. We had a really good show yesterday for Rule Zero. It was like the Brady Bunch at one point. We had we had 9 different boxes going at the same time. We're like, we could talk to each other to the side and everything and still make it look legit. But it was a really good show. If you have not checked it out, go and check it out. It was about sort of the state of masculinity in 2020. Anyways, that was the title. We talked a little bit about Candace Owens and Logan Paul and Elijah Wood and Harry Styles. And I think we're going to start seeing conversations change a little bit. And I wanted to start off our conversation here by sort of addressing something Carl has been saying for a while, is that I think that a lot of the guys who were kind of, I guess, staples in the manosphere are now going back from the political grift to sort of the red pill manosphere grift again. And this is something that I think I'm fairly certain I said something about this, at least in 2018 or 2019, when I was talking about the coming gender war, right? And I meant that in terms of like politics and in terms of, we're going to have a female president, or we're going to have a lot of women are going to be running on the Democratic side in the United States. I realize both of you guys are not in the United States, but, the United States sneezes and the rest of the world gets a cold. So I mentioned this, and the reason I mentioned this is because I saw a lot of the same happening in 2015, 2016. And a lot of people ask me this question. They'll say, what happened between you and Roosh? Like, how did you have this falling out? And it really had nothing to do with politics. It had nothing to do with his sister. It had nothing to do with anything that a lot of people presume. It had everything to do with the fact that he was, he'd gone on Dr. Oz back then and decided to sell himself out to, I guess, the highest bidder in this case, and decided to be pilloried on Dr. Oz and get a big paycheck, and he would get a big payday about that, and then pitched the idea that he'd been ambushed by Dr. Oz, and all I did was call him out on that. and I mentioned that he had written an essay called "Dr. Oz is a Pussy," and that was literally the title. You can go find it still. I think it's on what's left of Return of Kings, or it might be on his own site right now. But if you Google that, Roosh V. Dr. Oz is a Pussy, you'll find it. And he wrote that a full year before he went on Dr. Oz. And the reason I'm bringing this up right now is because it seems like at some point in this crazy, whatever we want to call the manosphere or whatever, that people sort of turn into chameleons. And I think that's something you guys were correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's something you guys were talking about yesterday morning on your show, about how people kind of fluidly move in and out of whatever is hot and whatever's not at a particular time. So Ryan, you want to start us off here? Like what was the whole premise of that show yesterday?
The premise was learning how to sleep at night and make some money, to be honest with you. Yeah, so many, like, it's the thing that got us kind of rolling on it, and it's kind of freeform for the most part. We have kind of like themes we stick to, but Carl will correct me here if I'm wrong, but a lot of guys will just say shit and they don't mean it. Like, even I was like lamenting. I remember when I used to be on the internet when I was just some nobody. I mean, I still am, but I was an anonymous nobody. And if somebody was starting a fight with you on the internet, I knew at least they were angry. Now it's at the point where somebody starts a fight with you, their Gumroad course is coming right after it. So you're like, it's hard to take anybody seriously. And then if it's just grifting all the way down, like a bunch of those Russian dolls, like, are you even engaging people anymore? And Carl had a great one where it used to be brands were like the faceless automatons talking to things. And the whole point that social media became good for marketing was because you were engaging with the actual guy who ran the company. But now they're kind of blurred to the point where, on screen you may see Roosh V or, Whipty Splash Masculinity Man, but you're talking to basically a robot. It's like a reverse Turing test.
Yeah. I whenever I see guys who are sort of picking up on, I think it's become really kind of formulaic right now. It's more like a routine. I've looked into that, and you, Ryan, you and I have talked about this before, where we're talking about how there are grifters that are teaching other grifters how to grift. Right? Yeah. It's got to the point where you can
the Deloitte of the grifters.
Yeah, exactly. You can now teach people how to grift, and that's your grift. That's your niche. That's your sort of your expert market. And what was that essay we were reading? I think it was, I forget who wrote it, but it was called, people who are successful don't teach you success. Like, they're just too busy being successful, right? They're not really they're not out there doing masterminds and
yeah, that wasn't me. It must have been Carl or Rich.
Well, no, you and I talked about it. It was an article, and it was a very long one, and I think it was probably about 6 months ago or 8 months ago, and I forget the guy who was writing it, but I thought the premise of it was interesting, because it kind of got back to sort of like the success porn grifter topic that you and I were talking about for a while there. And I think what's happened, and you guys can chime in on this if you want, but I think what's happening right now is we've gone, like, in the last 10 years, we have streamlined the process so thoroughly right now that if you have, you can create a book, a Gumroad book really quick and throw it up on your Gumroad site for $47, and it's all of, 60 some odd pages. And that's your sort of your passive income product. But really what you're selling is sort of this personality or this niche or this idea that you're some sort of guru about something, or you're in some way an expert on things. And from the article, it went like this. It was like, there's something that you're an expert about, right? Maybe it's dating, maybe it's fitness, maybe it's
I remember the one you're talking about now.
Yeah.
Who was it that did that?
And that's your niche, right? And so it starts with your niche. And so your niche is, let's just say it's health, right? Or nutrition. So you're selling nutrition. And this, of course, applies to the Manosphere, because everybody wants to be a quote unquote dating roach, dating coach, whatever it is. And so I think that when you see people who are pissed off at other people, like it's gotten to the point right now where what I call the hustle economy is, we've gone from this gig economy because it became so easy to work from home to being, so you can be a freelance. I did the same thing, right? I was a freelance designer. I was working in studios. I was working in ad agencies and marketing agencies and things like that for a while as an art director for a long time. And then I gradually moved away from that because I found it was more profitable to work for myself and to be a freelancer and to decide who I wanted to work with. I finally got to a state where I could do that because the technology was here. All the stuff that I have in the studio is far more advanced than anything that I ever worked with at, like, say, an in-house design agency or on an on-premise kind of thing. And so right now, and I think a lot of people are discovering this, is that they can work from home more efficiently from home and get things done in a better way, in a more efficient, more creative, better way, at least from my particular realm of career. And then that became the gig economy, right? Because then you get things like Fiverr or whatever. You get these services that sort of line you up with, like, who needs your services kind of thing. And then it went from that to what I call the hustle economy. And the hustle economy is really kind of where we're at right now. So you've got guys who are like reading my book, or they're like, everybody on, like, all three of us, we all have books. Some of us have multiple books.
The author panel. Look at that.
The author panel. I know that's what we should call this.
I have to use my evening radio voice. Yes, that's correct.
And so people will say, well, you're grifting, man. You're selling stuff. And I'm one of these guys who, like, my blog is really more expansive than any of the three books I've ever written. And all the material on my blog has been free for, well, almost 10 years now. And I've never monetized that blog. But the people who are now coming into the hustle economy don't know that. They don't know who I am. They don't know me from, like, I as you guys have known, I've been doxxed several times recently, but also in the past as well. And one of the things that I've always sort of stood by is that I try to make my wisdom, or whatever you want to call it, as affordable as possible. Like, do I have a Patreon? Yes, but you can pay, the highest tier is like $15, right? The lowest tier is $5. The book, when I started out with the Rational Mail, the first Rational Mail, I sold, and I still do sell the first book for as low as Amazon will allow me to sell it, which in the beginning it was $9.99.
I don't know about those arguments. I always wonder when people say it's too expensive. I've done this. I've asked somebody, like, what do you think I should charge? And you never get an answer back. I don't think that's the argument. I think it's just an opportunity to shit on somebody, and it's just the most convenient cudgel.
Mm-hmm. Well, we kind of have that weird thing here in this space that on one hand, you have the people who have the position that, well, you shouldn't really be making money for this. This type of service should be free. And then you have the guys on the other side that will charge you $4.97 to have access to their WordPress sites.
Mm-hmm.
And my thinking has always been, okay, I have a couple books out. They're listed on Amazon. I think one is $8.99, the other is $9.99 or something like that. It's not really something I endeavor to make money on. I put them out there, so if people want something that's not on the blog, they can go get it there. I feel confident that they can get their value's worth at that price point. Mm-hmm. What I question is, the argument I always get when I call out the Gumroad course guys is that, well, if you buy a course that costs you $500 and it makes you $1 million, that's a great investment. And yes, it is. But how many of those courses? It's like the guy who tells you, well, Bill Gates dropped out of college. Well, you're not Bill fucking Gates, are you, buddy?
No.
I agree. They're all disingenuous. And for me, I just sleep well at night because I'm like, yeah, your book, your grift and blah. My book's fucking good. Like, just fucking read it, or don't read it. I don't care either way.
Ryan, you remember this? Because I think this happened on the Red Pill Reddit when I was actually still part of it and it wasn't quarantined. I would go over either to the married Red Pill, or it was the ladies Red Pill. I don't even know what the hell they called it. Like the
ladies one weren't a fan of the men coming in there.
Yeah, exactly. The women's Red Pill. And so I'd go over there whenever I'd write a new essay, I would go over there and I would just seed it. Like, guys, if you want to read it, fine. If not, that's fine, whatever. And I go and I drop a link, and maybe I'd, put a little short description on there, and people would ban me from like the ladies red pill, or from like the purple pill subreddit, or whatever it was, just because I was trying to, in all genuineness, I was trying to, sort of stimulate a conversation. Stupid me back then. But the first thing out of anybody's mouth was, "You're trying to get traffic to your website." And I'm like, for what? I don't monetize it at all. Why would I do that?
Yeah, no, Reddit's a weird beast.
But that was kind of the same argument I had, because I used to post my stuff there, not because I wanted to necessarily engage in a conversation, just be like, okay, I just posted something new. Anyone who wants to can catch it, fuck off. And that turned into a big thing, because at one point, a certain Russian halfling prince decided to don his jackboots and make that environment completely intolerable for anyone with an IQ over 73. And I told that to the guy who was running it. Like, it's basically every thread you go into, you get a couple of peppy memes with him wearing a fucking swastika. And, that's not exactly the kind of conversation or the kind of company I like to keep. So either fix that, or I'm going to stop posting. And apparently jackboots are better content.
This is a good comment here, actually. It says, "Red Pill Reddit is trash now. Just get Jack, bro," is pretty much all that their advice boils down to these days. That's kind of sad, because I can remember a time where I would go on Reddit and I would have some pretty good conversation. Now, this is, of course, before the quarantine, which it's still quarantine 2 years later. But prior to the quarantine, it wasn't as, I think I've called it, inbred as it is right now.
Well, it's because the talent was still there. And the Russian guy that Carl's talking about, he basically scared away all the talent, because he wanted to be the most important guy there. And all he knew how to do, because he used to moderate that Donald subreddit, the one that's like notorious. And all he knew how to do was to make it so unlikable that nobody saw the value out of posting there for free. And that's the problem now, is that all the talent is gone. And so it's just a bunch of new guys talking to a bunch of other new guys about stupid things, with a very rare occasional like vet who knows what he's doing. I'm correcting the information and getting downvoted to hell. It's the nature of it. Like you know what? I won't get into it now, but there's like a whole science behind the art of running a subreddit. And you guys, if you want to talk about that, we'll get into it later. But I'll just let you know, like, a lot of like main things were kind of avoided that caused this to happen.
Isn't that still? I don't know if this is the Overton window or something like that. Maybe I'm using that.
No, regression to the mean would be a closer analogy. It's the voting algorithm is logarithmic. So your first upvote in the first minute will be 10 times as important as the 10 upvotes in 10 minutes.
Oh, I see.
So it's kind of so it's geared towards things that are easily digested and easy quick content and pablum. So it takes a heavy moderation problem or duty at the start to keep things on task, which arguably, if we're a new subreddit, if guys are just doing drive-by postings, getting rid of them makes perfect sense. Then what happens is unless you get a huge moderation team, which is impossible, you have to get what's called flavor posters, and that's the talent. People who know what they're doing, people who can reinforce social norms, and you have to make sure that people don't come in faster than those other people can acclimatize the new guys. Then every time there was like a big surge of notoriety because, the Red Pill subreddit got in the news for being, a bunch of haters, you get a bunch of new guys in there, and it would slowly water it down over time, but it managed to hold up surprisingly well. But then once the flavor posters had their one, Russian dude there going off against everybody, you lose all your flavor posters, and now the children are running the school, and that's pretty much how you get that. But really, at that point, like, the moderator's job is to keep the flavor posters in line, and the flavor posters are there to keep the, general audience in line for the most part.
So it's basically
funny thing here, Ryan. Just something I thought of. You're kind of explaining what happened to the Manosphere on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because that used to be similar, but then
extent, I would agree with that in a much larger, like, it's basically Twitter is just a much larger forum.
Pretty much.
But what happened was, just like, I kind of remember it because when I made the Black Label Logic account, like late 2015, early 2016, there was like a core group of guys that were kind of like the top guys, and you had some guys who were kind of new into it, and everyone was kind of working together and collaborating. But then right around like the fall of 2016, when the election heated up, you got this like two waves of influx, and one were the hustle constantly, and the other guys were the politics dudes.
Mm-hmm.
And the hustle constantly dudes were just in there to try and hawk product, and it wasn't necessarily good products. They just wanted to get a product up and start pushing it. So it was like 10% investment in product, 90% in marketing and noise. And then you had the politics grifters, which were kind of the same coin. It was just guys who were good at creating hype about themselves. Like everyone remembers Milo.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I'll tell you what's funny is I saw this progression. I'm glad you brought up Milo, actually, because I saw this progression in guys like Milo and guys like Mike Cernovich, Roosh to a lesser degree, although he would have probably preferred to be a greater degree. But I can remember, people don't realize this. I've known Mike Cernovich since probably 2008, 2009. We used to both congregate I guess it was a blog, but he would either come over to my blog and he would comment on the Rational Mail, or it would be, and this was afterwards, but then prior to that, we would go to other blogs or other forums, and I would see him. He used to post under Mike C all the time, and he was much more red pill and much more on board with that, the Manosphere, what we would call the Manosphere, messaging back then. And I've seen him sort of, he's like a chameleon. I say this not without a hint of irony, but the guy is like the P.T. Barnum of this era, of the Twitter age and the Twitter era. It's like whatever's next, he's on it.
Yeah.
And in a sense, you kind of have to. Yeah, I respect the hustle because he's right there. He understands zeitgeist, right? He understands what's going on at a particular time. How well he got. Like, people don't remember this, but they used to call Mike Cernovich Juice Bro. Do you remember that? Do you remember when
I vaguely remember this.
Yeah, he had a book on juicing and everything.
Yeah, because he was all about like juicing, like the and I don't mean like, shooting up testosterone or something like that, or steroids. Is because he had a juicer and he was like, that's what he was selling, that's what he was hawking. And then you can still find, I think you can still find these videos when he got into Wim Hof breathing, and he'd show these videos, and it was back in when YouTube was not quite what YouTube is now, and he'd be like in front of the camera and he'd be like and he'd like have this sweat just like dripping down his face, and you're like, what the hell's wrong with Mike? And it was funny, but like that's the next thing. Like he was like hawking that. And then back in 2015, this was right after my book had come out, he started selling Gorilla Mindset, which of course is basically Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale.
The secret for men, because gorillas are cooler than secrets.
All that stuff. And that's one of the things that really kind of rubs me the wrong way, but I get it. I like, in fact, Ryan, remember in that article that I was just mentioning a minute ago, the guy starts out with that. He says, there was this guy, I forget the guy's name. I think his name is Phineas Quimby. Mm-hmm. Back in like the 1800s, was just like, think it and it'll manifest for you. It was basically the secret for the late 1800s. And the guy made a fortune, I don't know about millions, but he made a fortune off of that. Then you got Napoleon Hill. Then you got Norman Vincent Peale, who put a religious spin on it. And then you get like Zig Ziglar, and then you get to Tony Robbins, and then you get to Gorilla Mindset. And now it's the same taco.
And people forget too.
Made
another thing on him. Remember Ryan Holiday and him were collabing. Him, Ryan Holiday, Tucker Max, that whole core group.
Yeah.
So and if you guys have read Ryan Holiday's book on Trust Me, I'm Not Lying, Confessions of a Media Manipulator, you're going to see, and this is the part that kind of makes me worry, like maybe the Manosphere really is bad, because guys like him, Sargon of Akkad, Elliot Hulse, all those guys came from here. This is almost like the breeding ground. And now that Mike Cernovich has made his proof of concept, like, dude, it's like you have to have your Wim Hof moment. Elliot Hulse is doing that one now. I have no doubt that name some contemporary ones, guys. I can't think of any right now.
Is a really good who's the the thing is, you can name anybody right now.
Yeah. Sargon of Akkad was in there, and he had like an Asian girl fetish. And now what's he?
certain of it, and I think this is one of the things that sort of rubs Carl the wrong way, is because these guys get in on one grift and then they change it to something else, and then usually it's politics around election time.
Well, yeah, they walk into our house, they shit up the place, and then they leave.
And then they come back 4 years later and go, "Hey, it's me again. Let's shit up the house."
Well, the whole reason that kind of rubs me the wrong way is that I don't mind. Like, I know why people come here to kind of build their brand. Because let's be honest, the people who are in the Manosphere are the most gullible motherfuckers I've ever met in my entire life.
There's another crop every year. They're
above Facebook gullibility. I'll give them
like, I'm not saying this to kind of insult our audience, because we're not supposed to do that according to this book I bought from a $79.95 Gumroad course, but like
crushing Twitter.
some fucking jackass put out tanning your asshole, and I saw at least like 20 guys on my feed talking about that, and about half of that was positive. So I'm just kind of judging from the perspective that if you wanted to build a brand, the Manosphere is probably like the second easiest one in the world. The easiest one would probably be go into feminist circles as a straight jack dude and telling them, yeah, you girls are right. I'm actually transgender. I'm bi-queer gender, blah, 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 whatever it is. That would probably be easier, but you can do it with a lot less effort here.
Oh man, like Evan Mark Katz or Mark Manson is in that now. Certainly Matt Hussey is like, these guys, they have it down to like if you're as good, I'm no homo, but like Matt Hussey's a good looking dude. Okay. Like Evan Mark Katz, he's a good looking dude. I can see how he can pull it off.
You have to be somewhat good looking. Nobody's going to hire an uggo.
Some kind of looks, you have to have some degree of like, you got your SMV has to be like in the 8 area, maybe higher than that. But those guys, they are selling like, they're selling like the positivity grift to like the spinster set or the divorcee set or the cougar set. Like, don't worry, ladies, I'm going to teach these guys how to be the kind of guys that are going to want you later on.
Yeah. You have to keep in mind, like, this grift is just, for me, it's about intellectual integrity. You either believe what you're saying or it's a means to get money. And if you want to sell guys that if you use a quartz crystal as a butt plug, that's alpha as fuck and women will fawn over you. If you believe that and you spend 24 hours a day with a quartz crystal up your ass, all power to you. But if you've been doing that for 10 years and you've gotten 8 lays in those 10 years, then maybe you should consider getting the quartz crystal out of your ass.
Yeah. RSD is a perfect example, alpha male. Perfect example.
I aspire to have his skills to ramble on for like 3 hours on camera without saying nothing.
Wow. Yeah. Well, Owen, I've had conversations with Owen Cook before, and this was back in like 2013, 2014, and this was prior to their shift over to the kind of positivity grift that they're doing right now. I think at some point, and Carl, you probably have, I think you've said something about this before. I think I've seen you tweet something about this before, but at some point, that old grift is not viable to that particular person anymore. I mean, an easy example, of course, is Roosh, right? But like for Owen Cook, who was part of the old PUA crew, for Christ's sake, the guy was in the game. You know, he was part of Mystery's thing. I mean, he was like sort of like the annoying little brother that was trying to like figure out all of his older brother's secrets in the game. I mean, it was an entertainment thing, but he developed that whole thing into here's how you get laid. Here's how you learn pickup. Here's how you learn these things. And from there, it went from that to something else. And it's like the same thing with like Tucker Max. Tucker Max's first book is
I hope they serve beer in hell.
And then his last book was Mate. And like, if you look at I used to have the picture up. I should go dig
the picture. The one it used to be the girl's face was blank, and then the girl was there with the guy's face.
And then on the latest on Mate, it's like his face is blank and his wife is the one who's got the face, right? And that's the purple pill in like 3 different pictures, right? The first book, he knocks up his has to marry the girl because he got a baby going, and then in the next book, it's like completely reversed, and now he's something different. And that is what I'm talking about here. Is like RSD did the same thing, only they did it on like a corporate scale. So they went from being about game, and like I think they had Todd Valentine for a while, and they had all their game instructors, and then suddenly gradually they moved over from like really good infield stuff, like learning like the nuts and bolts of game, to we're going to be Tony Robbins. To here's what was it? Julian Blank is just whack and has been whack for a while, but you didn't realize just how whack he was until they went into the positivity grift, and that's when it starts to become about like woo-woo magical thinking. That's when it's crystals. That's when it's MBTI. That's when it's like, let's start reading your tarot cards. And because that's when the last brain cells are firing, I think, like, what am I going to do to make some money?
I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's a brain cell issue. I think it's just a natural evolution. Mm-hmm. Because I've said it before, like if I wanted to start a business, I'd start a religion. Or rather, if I wanted to start a business for scamming people, I'd start a religion, because all you have to do is give them positive emotions, sound uplifting, occasionally chastise them, and they give you money. There's no requirement to actually deliver results or a product.
Yeah.
And you can always blame your listeners or your congregation. Well, you didn't implement it correctly. Well, you must have sinned. That you think about fucking the girl next door. And that grift is so much more flexible than something that depends on doing infields, where you actually have to show good interactions. Yeah. It's more effective than even like some of the shit I did when I did that 50 dates shit with Tinder. Mm-hmm. That was bloody exhausting, man. I slept for like 2 days straight after I was done with it, just because doing that much in that period of time. And if you think about a guy doing like street game infields, he has to get a certain proportion of those to look good to even sell his product. So if he's on a bad day, and let's say he's striking out with 9 out of 10 girls and he needs to put 10 girls in that video, that's 100 approaches plus some conversation time and a number close. That's a lot of work. And these guys are getting old. Like, I'm pretty sure Owen is dyeing his hair by now.
Well, I think Troy was the young pup in the space. He's what, 45?
Yeah. And that's kind of the point. Like, it's a good grift to be in. Same thing with everything politics related, because you never have to deliver results. You have to deliver good feels. Like, we're owning the libs. You're not delivering an election. You're delivering the feeling of winning.
Yes, you're dealing team sports. What was the maybe you know this, Ryan? What was the cult that just got like outed? Like it was like a sex cult where they were like branding the chicks and stuff like that.
Nexum. Keith, whatever his name is.
I was watching.
Of course, the guy with the tickle trunk knows this one.
I saw.
Hey, dude, that was inspirational.
You know, yeah, exactly right. I mean, that's L. Ron Hubbard, right? I made that point at one point on my blog, and I was joking around saying, you know, if I was going to create the perfect grift, I would follow L. Ron Hubbard, because that's what he said. He's like, you want to make money, you know, get into sort of the success porn grift. If you want to make millions, start your own religion. And I looked at this, and I was watching it was a documentary or something on YouTube about that cult, and I'm like, who's stupid enough to believe this? And it's like woman after woman after woman after woman.
Dude, I showed you that one about the breatharians. People literally stopped drinking and eating.
Well, it's the same thing with like Charles Manson, if you want to look at the family, because he got 4 or 5 girls in there, fairly young girls, not the best lookers, but good looking enough. And then he used those 4 or 5 girls by saying, hey, dude, if you join my cult here and be my follower, you can fuck these chicks.
Yeah. And religions are tax exempt.
Yeah, that's a good thing too.
Yeah. So
so is the Sphere. Everybody just does tax evasion.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Speaking of stupid things too. Sorry, I'll cut you quick here.
Man, that's fine. We're all casual today. So
yeah, I was doing the joke where tax evasion is bad, tax avoidance is good, and that's the problem with the hustle economy, is most guys portray one as the other. All of a sudden, my comments just filled up with people making the case for tax evasion. And I'm like, imagine the Manosphere if you didn't have to worry about, like, at that point, why would you even teach game? Just teach chloroform a girl and take her to your apartment game. Like, there's a reason we don't talk about that one.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up too, because like I see I see value in hustle, right? You can't argue with the numbers. Like when guys go into, and I know people are going to ask me this, so I'm just going to come out and say it anyways. Is like a lot of people say, well, you guys associate with John from Modern Life Dating. And I'm like, yeah, I do, because I knew John back before John became who he is right now. And he and I talk all the time. I know who he is, like on a personal level, and people go, well, how can you endorse body language mastery? Like, well, if you go back,
good and it worked.
Exactly. I said, if you go back and you look, I did not endorse body language mastery when it first came out. And even John says, you're leaving money on the table. I go, yeah, I know I'm leaving money on the table. I want to see what this is all about. I audited the class per se, and I watched the videos, and I lurked in the conversations, like the online, sort of interactions that they had. And I go, okay, this is something I could get behind. So when Body Language Mastery 2 came out, that's when I said, okay, I'm going to get behind this. We're going to talk about this. We actually did a full show about body language. And people kept saying, well, it's a grift, it's this, it's that. And I go, yeah, but there's guys that need this. There is the Lost Boys generation. You can make the same argument against John as you can make against Jordan Peterson. And people lose their minds when they go, oh, I can't believe you guys would talk shit about Jordan Peterson. He got me to go back to church, and he's really helping. I got 12 rules for life, and it changed my life. Yeah, but it's the same formula. He's in the right place at the right time with guys who need dad, guys who need this direction. And yeah, there's guys that need that direction. There's guys that need to learn how to like hold a girl's hand. What does it mean when she walks in front of you, when you walk behind, and all this other stuff that they never really picked up, just sort of organically. Like if you're a real human being and you have interactions with other human beings, you're probably going to pick up on some of these things. A lot of these guys don't have that.
It's funny though. Yeah, we both did the due diligence. I'm surprised people thought that we just like, yeah, it sounds good. It's like, no, man. Even on mine, I had a bunch of guys that I knew who were like, I'm curious about it. I'm like, well, give it a shot. Just let me know what you think. And sure enough, they came back. I'm like, was this useful to you? And if they didn't give me their yes, a bunch of the old married red pill guys, I wasn't signing on for it.
Yeah. And so my question is this though, is it's not so much like I try to do my due diligence whenever I endorse anybody. Like Myron Gaines comes up to me and says, hey, I'm doing this course. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, not until I know what it's about. Even Aaron Clary, who I've known longer than any of you guys, when he says, hey, I'm going to do this thing on economics, blah, 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 or what is it? Minimalism.
Oh, yeah. It's
cool. Let's do it. Let's talk. I mean, but then we had the Rule Zero online seminars, and the thing we did back in October. And I'm like, I am glad to be associated with each and every one of these guys after that, because I'm like, everybody did their homework. Everybody actually put the hours in and put the work in and did something.
Did the work.
You did the work. Yeah. Yeah. Damn it. I know I feel like last man standing, or like, God damn it, go out there and get
well, to be fair, we all kind of felt a little guilty because the fact that we had to cancel as an in-person thing. Everybody kind of came in there with like 20% more because we're like, yeah, I can't do this. Let's do it. Let's do it proper.
Yeah.
Well, my stance on that was just that the main difference between a grift and a legit product is the work that's been put in. And, I've sat through John's Body Language Mastery, and the dude put in a fuck ton of work there. Mm-hmm. I've read your books. I'm trying to read Ryan's book. But there's no way of, denying the work that's being put in. And I could mention a lot of other guys who put in the work. What I don't like is the guy who is like the Daniel Steele of Manosphere products. There's a new course every month. They're always priced, in my opinion, very high. And at that point, I'm starting to wonder, could this guy bring out a product that's worth, $500 or $1,000 or $1,200 or $1,500 or whatever? Mm-hmm. And because that's my kind of thing. If you're giving someone a $10 value for $5, you're doing a good thing. If you're giving a guy a $10 value for $500, then you're scamming him.
Yeah. I've been watching this series on Netflix, and it's called Unnatural Selection. I don't know if you guys have watched this. It's about like genetic manipulation and CRISPR and all that kind of stuff. And because of track with me here, because of the new gene therapies that they have, they can like big pharma, I guess, can cure certain diseases now, like congenital diseases. Like there's this one little boy that has like blindness, and they're they're trying to realign his eyes so that it works, so he actually can see once again. And there's one guy there who's like sort of using these experimental drugs to treat AIDS, and there's other things like that. The one that got me was they're using CRISPR, or they're using genetic technology to change the genetics of like mosquitoes. Or how do we get all the rats dead in New Zealand because they're an invasive species? How do we get rid of them? We can do it genetically. Oh, we can't do that because of morality. We don't want to play God, that kind of stuff. But the thing that overall throughout all of these episodes, one keeps coming up, and it is, if you come up with a cure for cancer or a cure for blindness, how much is that worth to the average guy, right?
How about a cure for the gay?
Right. Well, say that because I actually brought that up in book 4, but I want people to please go read it when it comes out. But the thing that got me was they did this comparison from back in like the 1920s when they cured polio, and the guys who came up with the cure for polio patented it for $1. And they said, well, it's a cure and it's helping humankind out. And it'd be like putting a patent on the sun, right? You can't, everybody deserves air and oxygen and sunlight and blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of like when, Benjamin Franklin actually came up with a patent for like a wood burning stove, and he did it for next to nothing so that people could be warm in their houses, right? I mean, it was just sort of this human goodness kind of thing. So I think that, and we brought this up earlier, is that if you have some new understanding about intersexual dynamics, like people have said, well, the rational male should be free, so I'm going to go and disseminate it all on these, these torrents.
It's free. First year Rollo.
Yeah, it is. All you have to do is put out the minimum of effort to go read those posts on my blog, which are still there, and you can go and read them. But dick me out of $9.99, which is the lowest that I can sell the book for on Amazon. But it's like, this should be free. It should all be free. And to an extent, I think it would be good for people to be able to improve their lives and to save their lives. And that's the first thing. Like you were there, Ryan, when 2017, 2018, we were at that certain convention, and people were saying, thank you for saving my life. That makes me feel really good. I didn't get into this because I wanted to make $1 billion. But at what point do you go, okay, should I make some money, or should I file a patent for polio for $1? And everybody lives a better life because of
that's the thing. Here's like the polio vaccine. I treat that like you're not fucking Bill Gates. Everybody says it should be free. Well, one, nobody values shit that's free. Like I said, the Rational Male book, you go back, read the first year of your posts, and you pretty much got the summary of your book right there. But it's free, so nobody wants it. Put a price tag on it, make a book, add some narratives around it, people actually want it. Mm-hmm. Secondly, how much of your labor are you obliged to give people? Books take effort. They take a lot of effort. They take a lot of time. Gumroad courses, all this stuff takes time and effort. People saying this stuff should be free. Oh, great. Well, who's going to do that work? Who's going to keep the lights on in the building if power companies need to be charging nothing for power, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody has to pay. What they're saying is, I want you to pay because I don't want to. And I find that to be a very selfish argument.
Well, I think that and the reason I'm using this comparison is because the polio vaccine in 1920s or whenever it came out, patented for $1, kids no longer have to be in crutches or whatever. Great. Awesome. But then they compare that with the big pharma right now, who are literally making $1 million for a dose of a certain, $850,000 for a dose of a certain medication or a treatment, a genetic treatment that will cure blindness, or it will cure like what used to be an incurable disease. What gets me is like, there's so many people who need things like, well, they would, how much is your eyesight worth to you? How much is the eyesight of your child worth to you? How much is if I could have done this, I would have done it for my dad. Like if I would have said, we can cure Alzheimer's. How much is that worth to you? Well, maybe if you're like 70 years old, it's not worth as much to you as if you got Alzheimer's when you were 10 years old. And so there's that balance of it too. Now, I'm not for, big pharma making millions and millions and millions of dollars when they don't really, come on. But you have to do the work. I got it. You should be fairly compensated for that. Got it. I'm not saying it has to be free, but at what point does it become too much? And at what point is it, let's give it away for free?
Well, my general stance on that was always that how much are you willing to pay for it works for things that are discretionary. Like when I get my groceries delivered to my house instead of going shopping, I pay about 10% more for the groceries plus a delivery fee. But I think that's a fair thing to say, like, how much is it worth for you not to have to go into Walmart with all those sweaty fat fuckers? Well, the $20 I paid to have my groceries delivered, well worth that money. But when it comes to certain things, like things that are health related, like medicine, or some of the stuff we do here that deals with men actually being able to get laid and get a job so they don't go and rent trucks, I think it's better for humanity in general that a lot of that is freely available, and then you can charge an extra markup. Like book 2 for me, for instance, is just a guide from being fat, ugly, and stupid, to put it like that. How do you improve yourself? How do you break things down? Right. How do you get a realistic perspective of where you are now, where you want to go, and how do you kind of bridge that gap? It's essentially a thinking, doing gap put in, sexual marketplace thinking. And I think that's a fair enough thing. That's something extra I did that took me quite a while to put together. So I'm going to charge a little bit for it. But if I put it up there for $300, I'd kind of be pissed at myself because it's something that would be useful. And the kind of guy would find it useful. Not all of them have the money. And I would rather everyone who needs it have access to it, as opposed to only guys who can afford to pay what I think this knowledge is worth.
But you see what I mean, though? So you're like, that's perfectly good, but you're kind of admitting then that you're doing it as a favor. So we're talking about like how much generosity does Carl want to have? He's like, in this case, I want it to be more accessible. So it should be free is asking for 100% charity. Carl's making the stance where, I have a much more reasonable sense, but I do like some charity involved with it too.
Well, at least pay for my hosting costs,
Yeah. But here's a question for you guys then to carry on with this thing. Rollo, Carl, whose fault is it? Is it the dealer's fault or is it the addict's fault for the drugs that we have?
That's a great question to ask me while I'm rolling a joint, you fucker.
Hypothetically speaking, of course.
Well, I've sold liquor for at least the last 25 years, close to, almost 25 years now. So I always thought, and I realize this is sort of like the Tate brothers question, which is like, well, they're going to go get it. If they don't get it from me, they're going to go get it from somebody else. It's like
which is a cop out too.
Ethically sourced addiction, right? At least like I heard Hotep Jesus say this. He was just on Tim Pool's show. I watched damn near the whole thing on my big screen TV because I just wanted to watch this thing. And so Hotep Jesus is on there and he was talking about the grift. That's kind of why I wanted to talk about it today and how everyone is a grifter. Everyone is a grifter. I made this point back in 2018 when I was talking about the State of the Manosphere address at that certain convention. And I was making the point that everybody is a brand of me. So if you have an Instagram account, even if you're not selling anything, you're still selling yourself. You're still your own brand. You're your own product. And Hotep Jesus was talking about this as well. And he was making a distinction here. And it's what I just said. It's ethically sourced grift. And so he was like, well, the difference.
I like how he puts that, by the way.
Yeah. Well, he said, that was me actually, but he was like, this is what he said is that it's, a grifter is a guy who is just out for the money, right? Whereas it's like everyone's a grifter. It's the guys who give back, the guys who are putting something back in after taking something out, right? The guys who are actually I know that
the
sounds
economic principle of providing value in exchange for money.
Exactly.
How novel.
I know. Yeah. I know. It's a principle of capitalism.
Where's
right?
Adam Smith when you need him?
Exactly. But and so what? So what is it like? Are you gonna like when we legalize marijuana here in Nevada? It's like all of a sudden, all of these dispensaries just popped up and they turned into McDonald's. Right now they're franchises, and that it's interesting to see how a new economy comes up in terms of we're going to sell dope, we're going to sell edibles, we're going to sell CBD, we're going to sell whatever. And it doesn't, whether or not you can handle it or not, doesn't make any difference. We're just going to be as nice. And you go and you walk into any dispensary and they look just as nice as anybody. They don't look like, some people do, I'm sure, and some of them may do, but like, they don't look like the guy who's like at the head shop or something. They
ruined like all the fun out of it. It looks clinical. It looks like you're buying toothpaste.
Got done at the Grateful Dead or something like that. I mean, they look like very respectable, almost like medical in a sense.
Like, I have mine here. I was going to show you what it looks like up here, but I can't remember where I left it.
The same thing that the guy who got done at the Grateful Dead is selling. You still got that. It's like you're not a head shop, but you are a head shop, and at what point, like, I think maybe it comes down to who do you feel good about enabling your addiction with, right? I made this point as well. It's like people will say, well, Rollo charges $8.99 for his Kindle book, or he charges like $11. Now I have to charge $11.99. Sorry, inflation, guys, but $11.99 for his book. Okay, well, if that book saves you from plunking down $4,000 a month for your OnlyFans addiction, was it worth it to you?
Yeah, but who makes these arguments, though? That was the point that Carl and I were talking about earlier. I've never seen anybody have a problem with you unless they're shilling some shit.
Or they want to punch the biggest guy in the
because they want to sell some shit and they don't have value and they don't have a product and they don't have experience and they don't have a specialty, but what they do have is indignation. Mm-hmm. And like for me, I love arguing online because why not? I'm still a small enough brand I can get away with it. I really wish you would take their arguments less seriously, because from your perspective, you're basically there as like a piñata. If I hit it enough, a Gumroad course will come out of it. I just know it.
So it will. let me throw in devil's advocate here. Okay. Because this is how I used to, I don't think this way anymore, but I used to think this way. Mm-hmm. Like people would hit me. And this was from back in my forum days when people would say, why do you engage these trolls? Because that's where they came from, right? Trolls in the forums when you know damn well that they're wrong, blah, blah, blah. And I go, well, I do it for two reasons. Then this is what I used to think. I don't think this anymore, but I used to think that by engaging and having that debate, that somebody who's reading that debate will go, oh, that's what Rollo means about this, right?
For the
it's
audience, yeah.
Of education. It's not that I think that I'm going to change this douchebag's mind about anything. It's that if anybody is within earshot or happens to read this over the course of now almost 20 years, if I took the time to go and do that and somebody reads it and they get something out of it and they understand what I'm talking about, then I've done my job, right?
Yeah, like the classical Greek debate, you're appealing to the audience, not to the other person.
Right. Yeah. Well, and so that's point one. Point two is that by engaging in those debates, I'm hoping that at somewhere along the, like sorting through just the bullshit and the specious arguments and everything else, that maybe I'll think of something that I didn't think of before when I was coming up with that point, right? So if I say something and I say, well, hypergamy is this, and Pat Stedman goes, no, it's not. Let's debate why you're a cult leader. If I have that debate with him, somewhere in the back of my head, and I realize I'm totally stupid for thinking this, but in the back of my head, I think, well, if I had that debate with him, what would I get out of it? Like, would I be able to educate myself? Because maybe he's going to throw some stupid argument at me that I would go, I hadn't
never seen before. Yeah.
Well, not that I haven't seen before, but I haven't approached it from a particular angle that because I was dumb enough to do that I would actually think of something new that would lead to something that would be helpful for other people.
So how many toddlers do you have to have a fist fight with to learn some new punch you never knew of? I get it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, yeah, exactly. It's like, it's, what do they tell you in like martial arts? It's like, even if you have a 10-year-old white belt, the 10-year-old white belt can still teach the black belt something who's been into martial arts for 20 years because the kid did something out of whack that seemed intuitive to him. And you go, oh man, I never thought about throwing a punch that way or doing a kick this way or whatever. And even when you're old and gray and you see something new, you can still pick up and learn from that.
Yeah, but here's why that doesn't work. Like Stedman, remember this $100,000 stupid bet?
Where I am now.
Yeah, and now people are looking at him as like, dude, did you just bet $100,000 in the election and you're talking about marriages and stuff? And he's like, actually, missing the entire point. The idea was you did something stupid. Why are you bragging about it? He goes, actually, it's 130,000. To him, all he sees is attention. And even right now, he's probably like, oh, good, they're talking about me, even though we're calling him a fucking moron.
There comes a point of zero returns.
Yeah.
There, at some point, there's like people will say, well, you should argue with or you should debate Face and LMS. I'm like, first of all, I don't owe him a goddamn thing. And then second of all, what is he going to teach me? And who's going to learn from this by me going on there and like bantering back and forth with this guy?
Can I ask, what does LMS stand for?
Looks, money, status. Pretty sure that's it.
Yeah, I'm just curious because like when I get like new words coming at me, it's like, okay, I'm not sure what this means. And at this point, I'm kind of afraid to ask because I feel I should know it. Mm-hmm. But like my thing is just whenever you hear like, especially like a game or like a Manosphere account bang on about one thing a little bit too much, that's usually a signal in itself, and not to guess a motivation, but LMR is something that a couple of guys talked a lot about. Right?
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I've never seen Sad Petman before. That was pretty damn good. That's good, Mitch. Good. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, it's okay. But my stance on it was like LMR, like for the experience I've had, I've never had a lot of LMR. Like I've had moments where you need to slow down or where you've been pushing a little bit too fast, too soon. But like if some guy is getting LMR with every girl he hits on and every girl he sleeps with, there's something suspect about how that guy runs game.
Right.
And it's the same thing here. If some guy keeps banging on about, okay, you know, I'm a millionaire, my time is worth, you know, 10 grand an hour, and you're selling consulting for 300 an hour, there's something that doesn't quite jive there.
Mm-hmm. I've had this conversation with other people before where people will say, well, Rollo, you're under market value, or like even John will say this, but John's not the first one to tell me this. Mm-hmm. Is like, say, you could be making so much more money by doing this course or doing this or putting this out or doing these things. And perhaps they're right. I mean, I have at least some kind of, you know, big brand name to what I do for what it is. Right.
Yeah. Why aren't you on Tim Pool talking about the election?
God damn it. I know. I know. People ask me this all the time. I mean, every single podcast, somebody goes, when are you going to get on Joe Rogan? Like, I don't know. I'm still waiting for the call, man. You know, or I happen to know Lydia, who is Sour Patch, whatever her name is, on she's I think she is Tim Pool's girlfriend or fiance, but she's the producer for his show. And Tim Pool has really upped his game. I'm not gonna lie. He's got his own. I mean, he can get like 50,000 viewership on his live streams, and he's up there. He's got a better viewership than CNN in some cases. And you know, I mean, after a while, I'm sure that maybe that goes to your head, but it seems like he's still pretty well grounded. I mean, when I was watching Hotep Jesus on there, Hotep Jesus, another good guy.
Well, I think they're kind of both in the same, like that conscientious grifting you're talking about. I think they're both in that category. Yeah. Like I don't feel dirty after watching one of their casts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Or like you watch Alex Jones and you go, it's like eating like McDonald's. It's like, it looks good when you're like, oh man, I can really use a Big Mac. And then you're like, oh man, what was I thinking?
Oh, here's the thing. Garage in the chat. By the way, he's the one that did up this cover. Your copy's in the mail at some point too, buddy. Mm-hmm. I wonder then, so is the issue's not money? Because as soon as we started talking money, we came up with a lot of easy exceptions. It's not about whether they believe in it or not, 'cause we're coming up with those exceptions. I think after talking with you guys, the issue is, are they any fucking good at it? You know what I mean? Like everybody who we call like a grifter as a pejorative always seems to be ham-fisted, like bad, like generally bad at it. And I think that might be the issue. It's like, get your shit together. You know what I mean?
Well, even Hotep, like when I interviewed Hotep and then I went on his show, we talked about that. We said, yeah, he asked me about like, you know, grifting and stuff like that. Cause he's got that t-shirt that says it's grifting season. Yeah. And that kind of goes back to what Carl was saying, like at certain times in like, in our online globalizing sort of multimedia society, there are periods of time where it's easier to make money doing, talking about a certain thing or grifting on a certain thing, but everybody's a grifter. Everyone is a grifter. That's what I meant by the hustle economy, is that everybody is their own brand of me. And when I did the State of the Manosphere address, and I did the SWOT assessment of the Manosphere, which is strengths, weaknesses, what is it? What's the A?
Opportunities and threats, isn't it?
Opportunities and threats, right? I think the greatest the greatest threat was the brand of me, because there's so many, and I was right, 100% right at that freaking convention, right? Everybody was right there. We're the threat. It's from within that particular. You will see this, and this is not just the Manosphere. This is like any sort of niche kind of thing. The biggest threat is not from outside the niche; it's from within the niche. And so when we see, like, people say this all the time, they'll say, well, there's MGTOW, there's red pill, there's black pill, there's this, there's that, there's MRAs, and nobody even talks about MRAs anymore. There's PUAs, there's this, there's that, and I guarantee you within the next 5 years, there will be another subset of these guys who think that they're original and think that they're novel from within the Manosphere. And they're not. They're just like the guys who are black pill right now. They used to call themselves the True Force Loneliness. That's where that came from. The black pill, True Force Loneliness. The black pill came from slut hate / PUA hate. That's how you get those guys right now. And they think that they're new. They think nobody's ever done this before. No, dude, they have. They have
never had troubles hitting on women before. You don't understand. It's not like it was in 2008, and you're just like, oh, for crying out loud.
Yeah, well, I mean, the basic.
Yeah, well, that's the same thing I've been saying with not to bash on American public schooling again. I've done it already like 18 times this week, but it's the same thing. It's like, well, you have to keep in mind America has, slavery in its history, and it's white people enslaving black folks. And it's like, okay, what about Rome enslaving virtually everyone in fucking Europe, dude? That happened like 1,000 years before. And it's that lack of knowledge of history and the history of an idea. And for me, it's not only do they do shitty prep work, but even with shitty prep work, they don't come up with anything original. And the only thing that's shiny and that they put some effort into is the cover and the marketing campaign. And that rubs me the wrong way, because you can deliver a great product with a shitty cover and shitty marketing, and you will deliver value. But if people are expecting like something of great value and they get a fucking Chia Pet,
right,
that kills it for everyone else, because the people who are actually delivering value in the industry are going to be lumped together with this bunch of people who Jesus would have kicked out of the fucking temple. Like, it's kind of ironic. The only people Jesus were pissed at were the fucking grifters inside the temple. So I'm feeling a weird communion with Jesus right now.
Let me address this real quick. American Mustang says, I will say Corey Wayne and 33 Secrets led me to Rollo Tomassi equals YouTube algorithms. Okay, yeah, I get that. And people have said this before, because, like, say, why do you get pissed off? I don't even know who Corey Wayne is. I
still haven't seen a thing.
I'm peripherally aware of that guy. Last weekend I did a show on Red Pill Coach. It's like anybody with if you want to know if you're dealing with a grifter, the guy has Coach at the end of his name. But like people will say,
they've all switched to consultant now, by the way.
Well,
I know. I made that big. I'm happy about that.
Yeah, therapist. Oh boy, we're going to talk about that today too, Ryan. But like, guys will say, "Well, why are you pissed off at 33 Secrets guy? Whatever's an Matt Cross? Is that what it is? I don't even know.
Why are people pissed off at their coworker who just skates out of doing things?
Right, exactly. It's like, because we've gotten to a point right now in the hustle economy, which is exactly what Carl was just saying a second ago, is that you can take material from a previous era. And it's never been easier to do this. You can take other people's material, you can plagiarize other people's material to the point where, like, damn well they're not going to come after you because it's been talked about, or if somebody went in and they said, oh yeah, and they started going with the 9 iron rules of Tomassi and everything, yeah, I might throw a copyright infringement at those guys. But other than that, I'm probably not going to go after you because you don't have any money to go after. And so these guys will be throwing out like stuff that I've said, or like things that I covered like almost 20 years ago. and calling it their own and repackaging it. And the thing that gets me is just what Carl was saying, is like, it's my value, it's my work, and they take it, plagiarize it, and repackage it as their own work, and then say, oh, this is what I did. And then if you ever go after them, or if anybody else says you're a fraud or whatever, then they'll go, nah, and they're more involved in protecting their image than they are about developing anything new or creating anything new for people to actually use.
And that's a good thing too, because it's not new. The fashion industry's had to deal with this, because you
it's
can't.
A formula now.
Well, like other industries have to deal with this. I was telling you guys before. That's the whole reason that Louis Vuitton and Coach put their logo all over their purses, because you cannot create any kind of copyright or trademark or patent for clothing design. And so somebody is, as soon as, and this is like Zara, that's their model, is basically the 33 secrets of fashion. You come out with something great designed, spend a lot of time. You're some fancy French designer. 3 months later, Zara's got like a cheap Chinese knockoff version for it in the stores. And the good thing about it is they kind of let you know how you deal with that. And they deal with that by constant innovation, right? It's just basically everybody's trying to catch up to you, so just keep running and you'll be fine. Now, granted, it sucks with sexual strategy because there's only so many things you need to know about sleeping with chicks. It's not a wide pool. It goes deep, but it doesn't go wide. And I think this is where some guys, then you get that temptation. It's like, well, I'm out of content. I can't just do looks, money, game again. Well, let's talk about politics, because it's easy and it's cheap. And I think that it's almost an inevitability that you have to move on. But how you move on and where you move on to, I think, makes the difference. But at the same time, like, the path is there. It's in other industries, so it's not so much a unique problem for us. It's the problem that everybody has. It's a humanity problem, which kind of comforting in a way.
2 kind of points on this. Number 1, Ryan, I don't think the grifters go wide or deep. I think after the first couple of inches, it's all pristine soil.
Well, yeah, they just go up Rollo's ass. I don't know if it's wide or deep.
Well, to comment on what Rollo was saying, he really ruined my new product coming out for $4.97 on Gumroad. Beef up your bangin'. That's a really original cover on that one.
Well, I'll say, Kundo here, this is interesting, because like he says, no, where is it? There it is. American Mustang Stores. He led me here also. So a lot of people will say this. It's like, why do you care? Right? Like, because ultimately, even if people put your book on like these torrent sites as a PDF or whatever, you can go and hunt those down, and you can hire people to go and do that for you and like remove all that stuff. But at the end of the day, if somebody gets it for free and it is of as high a value as, say, the Rational Male is, they're going to come back. I've had people tell me this. I downloaded your book from a pirate site, and now I'm buying extra copies for my friends to give to them because I want them to have this information too.
Napster already proved that argument's BS anyway. They made the same argument about Metallica, and then they showed, the industry got crippled. So no, it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way, because I'm still out here busting my ass, and like people say, well, what about like when 33 Secrets says something and he references your book or whatever? And like, first of all, he rarely ever, it's not like he's putting
an exposure.
Here's where I got this, guys. He's not saying that. It's a formula now. It's a formula that says, here's how you get rich online. You create a YouTube channel, you create a Gumroad pamphlet and sell it. And it's like, again, it's brand of me. And it's gotten to the point where the grifters are teaching the grifters. So you have a grifter that says, here's how you do this niche grift. And really, the Manosphere is just one niche amongst dozens of others. And sometimes they cross over. Like the fitness thing might cross over with Manosphere. The entrepreneur thing might cross over with the Manosphere, might cross over with fitness, might cross over with these things. So it's like, wherever you like feel comfortable, if you think you can bullshit about fitness, then that's your niche. If you think you can bullshit about success, then that's your niche. If you think you can bullshit about CBD oil, that's your niche. And go hard on that, because the work's already done for you.
What bothers me the most, though, isn't that aspect because if someone reads your book or reads my book, reads Ryan's book, or, and repackages that and attributes it, I don't care. They can load my shit on torrent sites all day for all I give a shit. What kind of bothers me with the whole thing is you have the same guys doing the same grift, and I'm not pissed at the guys doing it. I'm pissed that the audience were dumb enough to buy into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's like,
they don't know any better either.
Yeah,
it's kind of like,
so if that's the case, then like, why should I feel bad about, and I don't want to rip people off. I've never been like, you want to know why I have not pre-sold book 4? And I could very easily do it right now. I've not pre-sold. Well, of course, there's there's one other reason for this, and I think Ryan knows what it is. But like, I don't sell stuff that I don't have, and I learned that from working for almost 2 decades in the liquor, wine, and spirits industry. Right? You don't sell shit that you don't have in stock. If you don't have it in the warehouse, you don't go and advertise it, because what will happen is something will go wrong. Something will happen and you won't be able to produce, and you will go under because of that. I don't sell what I don't have. So, and the main reason for that is because I don't want to rip people off. It's like, I hate to say it. Well, I'm a really nice guy.
No,
but
strategically it makes sense. Ripping people off gives bad press.
Yeah, and it ruins your brand of me eventually, because your integrity and your reputation are everything.
It also means that people are going to be sitting on Rollo's ass 24/7 being like, hey, I paid for your book. When's it going to be out? I paid for your book. When's it going to be out? And if you want to treat that, like, I think there are 2 modes of production within this space. And I'm the kind of guy, I produce something when I feel I have something to produce. So I used to stick with a heavy posting schedule. I had a schedule for book releases, etc. And now I'm more like, okay, if I feel like I have something I need to say, I'll write a post, or I'll write something in a book, or I'll work on something. I'm working on a couple of products right now, but I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm not going to pre-sell them, because that means there's an onus on me to finish them in a timely manner so I can deliver them to the people who already paid good money for it. And I'd much rather run the Eminem model. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what he did with his last couple albums. No, he just released them without any form of campaign in advance. He just didn't say anything. And he said, like, the reasoning behind that is, if I say, yeah, I'm putting out a new album in 6 months, then people are going to say, like, well, he has to do this. So he has to collab with that dude. He has to do something like this. And that way, their expectations are built so high in advance that whatever you deliver can never live up to what they imagine it would be in their head. And it's also going to pressure you to deliver something you're not comfortable with, and which isn't, let's say, and I hate to say this because it sounds so fucking cliche, but it's not artistically pleasing to you. It's not the message you want to convey. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind when you're producing this kind of content, that if it's not authentic, then should you even be putting it out there?
Well, I think Deadmau5 put it best when he said, art's not a democracy.
That's true. Well, it's like it goes back to the idea, like, what's an authentic man? Like, are you actually really like this? Is this really who you are? One of the reasons why I think a lot of these new guys coming into all this, like black pill grifters and shit, the reason they want to dox you and dox your family and dox your daughter and dox your dog and dox everybody is because that they think, and maybe rightly so, they see authenticity as a way to attack you. So if you've ever taken a bad picture, that's their whole thing. And if you get enough guys to do that, then suddenly now it's a hit on your integrity, it's a hit on your reputation, whatever. You could just roll it off or whatever. But notice, and whether you put any value into that is neither here nor there. But notice that the first thing that they attack is authenticity. It's do you have the receipts, right? Do you have it's very similar to credentialism. Like, do you have a degree in psychology? Rollo Tomassi.
Cite your sources.
Yeah, I've got a BS in behavioral psychology, but and I've got a BFA, but other than that, no, I don't have a doctorate in evolutionary psychology. Although I talk about it quite a bit because I have an interest in it, and I have an honorary degree, let's just say, in some of the things that I talk about, because it's just either from experience or from like genuine interest.
Also, like, one of the reasons why, because I kind of weighed the whole anon versus non-anon for a long time. Because it's kind of limited in some respects. Like, I realized that if you guys go national with a TV show, the anon isn't going to be on it. If there are conventions, I'm not going to be able to partake in them, etc. But that's kind of the cost of it. The benefit of it is the fact that if someone comes at me, they have 2 attack modes. You don't show your face, with the implication being you don't have the receipts to back it up. And they have attacking me on something I said or my content. And it's never that second one. It's never challenging the arguments. It's never challenging the data. It's always like, you don't show the face. And it's the same thing. Like I told Ryan this, like you could be on screen with Emily Rykowski or whatever her name is on your arm, sitting on the hood of a brand new Lambo. And they would still be like, oh, your girlfriend is, she's skinny, no hips, 6 out of 10.
This is all you can
That Lambo's the wrong fucking color, dude. And you obviously have a class 2 jaw, so you're kind of fucked.
Yeah.
She's obviously hired in here.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Go ahead, Carl.
No, I was just going to say, like, it doesn't matter how good you have it or how good your receipts are, because they'll still attack you on the basis of those receipts.
Oh, yeah. Because you're never good enough, and you never will be good enough. And that, again...
And to be fair, the Instagram ass model, I dislike that too. Like, case in point, Rollo, yeah, you got guitars, you got the snowmobile, you got stuff. You could brag about a lot of things in your life, but you don't, because it really doesn't matter. It's not
my wheelhouse. I could say, like, I've had people say, hey man, let's go throw a jam, or why don't you go and do some video of you in rehearsal at doing this. I'm like, well, if you want to listen to my music, it's in every description. You can go listen to it on Spotify if you want, but that's not what this is about. That's not what I've been about. Like, people say, well, why don't you talk about politics? Why don't you talk about race? Well, what about ethno-nationalism? Why don't you go like, hey,
why is there always got to be one guy asking that one?
One guy? You only get one guy?
That's like, that's not my wheelhouse, dude. Yeah. It's like, and I'll tell you, I've said this before on my blog and on here as well. It's like, I don't talk about race. I don't talk about ethno-nationalism. I don't talk about the Jewish question. I don't talk about black people. I don't talk about, Hispanic people. I don't talk about, religion per se, only when it crosses over into intersectional dynamics. Then I will talk about those things. Okay, we're good with that. But when people say, well, why don't you talk about politics? I'm like, because there's a billion other guys that do it way better than Rollo Tomassi would ever be able to do it. So go talk to them and go watch Alex Jones or whoever turns you, whoever floats your boat, man.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Here's the one thing I do like, though. Most of the guys that try to sell themselves as the Instagram ass model of the sphere, they can't just be competent men. They have to be that top 1%. Like, I can't have a car that's paid off. I have to have a Lamborghini. I can't be drop shipping unless it's anything less than $100,000. The part that I like about yours, and that's because I'm trying to do the same thing, I'm showing a baseline level of competence. Yeah, sure, maybe everybody wouldn't switch lives with me, but nobody would look at my life and be, I don't want anywhere near that train wreck. And I think that's good enough. Like I said, Rollo, you probably got a house that's like $500,000 or more, $500,000 condo or more. Those guitars are a couple grand a piece, that kind of thing. So you can see that you have a baseline level of your shit together, which is good enough. And then beyond that, then you focus on sexual dynamics. You're like, top level. I'm like in the lower level, and Carl's like in the trenches, and whatever level of resolution you want to use. And I find that one's better. I mean, first off, it lets you know who's being genuine or not. Because if somebody's not being genuine, the argument comes with how your hair looks like shit, or, why are you wearing that same beanie again? Or like Carl said, but Carl doesn't even get that. Like, they don't have a lightning rod to attack him, which is kind of neat because he showed me just how disingenuous it is. Because when I see them doing it to Carl, I can tell, it's clearly they have nothing to go on, so they're just projecting their issues. But it's a lot harder when it's coming at you, because they're like, what's wrong with my mustache? Or, whatever. What's wrong with duck hunting colors?
Yeah. Right. You have to have a certain amount of Teflon on yourself to get into the hustle economy right now. If you are like easily offended, or you get pissed off, or you have like a very fragile emotional ego, whatever, don't get into the hustle economy. Really,
sort out those insecurities.
Really,
or become completely delusional. Either one works.
What's funny is, like, whenever, like, if my daughter gets doxxed because of Rollo Tomassi, or if whatever, it's like, I hate to have to be the one to say, look, if this is what you're going to do, if you're going to put yourself out there, you really need to be Teflon. You really need to find a way. You can't take this seriously. You can't let it hit you as an ego attack or something like that, because if you do, this ain't for you. And like, here's one of the things that it's getting back to the idea of like not showing your face. I think what's funny now is you can tell who knew me from back in the day and who only knew me for the last like 3 years, because for 90% of my time in the Manosphere, or what do we call the Manosphere, whether it's on So Suave, or it was on my blog, or it was on Reddit, or it was on anything. I never showed my face. I did not show my face until October of 2017. And it's not because I wanted to. I probably would have loved to have done it before that, because I realized that there's like sort of a certain value or authenticity that goes along with that. But like even you, Ryan, you didn't know what I look like until like we met each other at that 2017 convention.
I was expecting a Paul Elam. I swear to God.
You thought I was going to be this big fat dude, and I was. I thought that was pretty funny, but what gets me is like people go, well, you're Rollo Tomassi, you show your face all the time. No, dude, I have like from like 2002 till 2017. I never show, like 15 years, I never showed my face, and for good reason, because I wanted to protect my wife, my daughter, my dogs, my job, my
snowmobiles.
Yeah. To this day, I have only ever once been recognized at the gym. Like people will say, "Oh, that's Rollo." You know, like I've never had like one of those. It's like I'm not like Hotep Jesus probably gets this more than I do, or like Paul or Logan Paul obviously gets this. But like if you're like famous, like Cernovich. In fact, if I saw Cernovich, I would go, "Oh, that's Mike Cernovich," right? But nobody goes, unless you are a big fan and you've read my books and you watch the show all the time, or you have in the last like 3 years realized what I look like. You're probably not going to recognize me on the street, and that's by design. I'm glad. I hope you don't. I don't want you to recognize me, because I, to some degree, I do value my privacy. Not like I have to keep my face behind a mask all the time, or behind a gravatar or whatever all the time. But now, it is what it is. I have to do what I have to do. And I'm more comfortable putting myself out there, but I understand why Carl doesn't. And I can't really blame other people for not doing it, because a lot of people will say, well, I need to protect myself. Great. So while you're attacking me and doxing me and fucking with people that I care about from behind a mask or from behind an icon, that's one thing. It's another thing if you're going, oh, well, I'm producing this great work that if it got out who I was, I'd be fired from Google like James Damore. Like, I get that. I understand that. Like, if you have an unpopular opinion, you can be canceled today if people can figure out who you are, what your face looks like, facial recognition, blah, blah, blah. The idea of privacy is like out the window right now. I don't know why anybody even thinks there's such a thing as privacy, or even being off the grid at this point. But you can still do things to sort of ensure that you're not going to get doxxed, or people. I don't care if I get doxxed. I care if my wife gets doxxed, or my people want to poison my dog, or they want to like go mess with my daughter or whatever. That I care about. That I'll kick your ass for. If you want to come at me, please, by all means. Here you go, right there. Put it right there.
Well, I'm not going to interrupt you, Rollo. You had a good rant going there, but I'm going to tell everyone a little secret, because Rollo talks about being Teflon when you join the grift. Mm-hmm. And much like vegan bodybuilding, there's a secret they're not telling you about being Teflon. For vegan bodybuilding, it's called a large amount of steroids. And for being impervious when you're in the grift economy, it's called the Donald Trump Jr. lines. It's all about that clapping cocaine thing. Mm-hmm. If you're on cocaine, you're impervious, and a lot of these motherfuckers are on cocaine.
Oh, at least Dude, there's guys admitting to me in DMs like I take Xanax, Ambien, and booze to get to sleep. And then they go online tomorrow and they talk about how, peace and positivity, man, that'll get you laid. And I'm like, what the fuck?
I know. I love that. I love that too.
That's why one of my favorite lifting coach guys has been Mark Bell from what's it called? It's strong. It's not Strong Lifts. It's something. He has the strongest gym in California. And the reason why I love that dude and he's knowledgeable about what he does. And he said openly, repeatedly, guys, I've been on steroids since I was 16. Mm. I can't go off steroids because I'd lose 50 pounds on my bench press over fucking night. And I have no problems if fitness guys are like that. Yeah, put on a lot of muscle, but I've also been on Trenbolone for the last 18 years, and my dick doesn't get hard anymore. I have no problem with dudes doing that. I have no problems with guys who are like, yeah, I hustle 24/7, but I'm on Adderall from I wake up until I go to sleep, and then I pop 4 Xanax to get back down. I have no problems with those dudes. The dudes I have an issue with are the people who are doing those things. You're like, no, man, I'm natty, bro. I'm just your average natty vegan, and they look like fucking Rich Piana.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think that's the thing is economically you want full transparency or full information between the buyer and the seller, and that's how things work, right?
Yeah. Perfect information.
Yeah, perfect information. And so I authenticity, I would say insofar as that word has any fucking meaning at all, which it doesn't. That's just a way for a guy to continue peddling bullshit by making it sound better. It's like only 7% violent or mostly peaceful. Well, I'm authentic. All right, thanks, coach. I think it's that perfect information. Like Carl's book, Rollo's book, my book, talking with that. Like you know what you're in for. You know what you're going to get. It's delivered as promised. I can live with that. The audience can live with that. And people make informed decisions. I think where the grifter comes as a pejorative is where there's some shadiness there. There's a certain information asymmetry. They don't know that 33 Secrets is just reading Rollo's book in his car or driving around in a parking lot. They don't know that.
The barrier to entry to that is to be that authority is like so
non-existent.
low right now.
It's like the weight loss industry. Anybody can say they have a weight loss program and nobody can fault them for it because there's no bar association for weight loss assholes. There's no Manosphere certification. And if there was, I think that would ruin it because it'd be so goddamn cringe.
Like
it's the same thing. My tattoo artist said this when she was doing some ink on me recently. Mm-hmm. There is no like protected title for calling yourself a tattoo artist. You can go in and buy a piece of tattooing needles on eBay, open up a shop tomorrow, and say I'm a tattoo artist. And the biggest problem with that is if you go to really good tattoo artists, not only are they good with the art and the application to skin, they've also been trained in blood-borne diseases. They know everything about how to keep a sterile work environment. They sort all those things to make sure that you don't end up with Hep C after you've gone and gotten some ink. And it's the same thing here. Like any guy can go and put together some course on what he thinks will work. I mean, Rollo has this great essay from like his first year. Finally, you're like the Stephen King of the Manosphere. Like your first work is like the best thing you ever did. But the point of that, the point I was getting at, like anyone can package this, and Rollo's essay was that every guy has game. Every guy has something he thinks works in getting him laid. And every guy can package that and market the fuck out of it into a Gumroad course. Mm-hmm. But most of them are not going to help you a lot if you apply it. And for the lack of a better thing, I've applied every single thing I've written about ever. Mm-hmm. And it's worked for me. And a lot of the time, if you look at my earlier stuff and you look at my later stuff, you'll see that something changed. And that's because in the process from the first writing to the last writing, I had experiences that contradicted the original hypothesis. So I had to modify or update it to reflect the understanding I have now. If one guy has been the same dude for like 5 years, you followed him, that dude is obviously full of shit.
Yeah. There's also the consistency side of this thing too, which is like if you're not consistent, then you end up looking like Mike Cernovich, right? Or you're Milo or you're whoever, where you realize 5 years later that they're actually just hustlers and they're not really juice bro. They're not really, into Wim Hof breathing. It was just whatever the grift was at that particular time. I think really, and I think maybe this is asking too much of people who are sort of your followers or your readers or whatever, because you're going to have new readers. You're going to have new people who are going to find you through whoever and think of you as sort of an authority on things. And I'm glad people do, but it's also a consistency as well. So like if I say like, and Ryan, we've talked about this, like when we talk about the red pill as being like sort of a praxeology, the great thing about that is it's a loose science. So if we have new data, if somebody says, oh, ovulatory shift is bullshit, and here's all the reasons why it is, or why hypergamy should be changed, if you can make a good, valid argument to me as to why that is, and show me the receipts, right? Show me
show me, don't tell me.
Then I will be happy from a scientific perspective to change my opinion or to alter it or modify it in some way. But I've never gone and started like talking about like astrophysics or something like that. I've never like I said, that my wheelhouse has always been intersexual dynamics. So when we have new data for what I've been talking about for, almost 20 years right now, I'm happy to alter that. I'm happy to change things up if that's the case. And I have done so. When you guys read book 4, you'll notice the language changes quite a bit from book 1, because I'm not using $10 words all the time, because I want people to be able to understand this, because I understand that religion, because that's what I'm getting into, is red pill and a crossover into intersexual dynamics with religion. I understand that people have a lot of real emotional investment in their spiritual beliefs. So I try to be from word 1, from the introduction, I've tried to be as sensitive as I possibly can with that. And that means writing without bullshit, right? It means writing in such a way that I'm not wasting your time, but also in a way, in a language that you can understand. So do I use $10 words? Yes, but I use them like every other paragraph rather than like, every sentence like in the first book. So I change things up again. Have I changed who I am? No, I've just changed how I'm intelligible to who is reading me and who's understanding me right now. And after a while, when you have 20 years of writing experience, or you have 20 years of experience in a particular field, maybe now you're a master at that field. But that doesn't mean that the people who know me from the last 3 years and know what my face looked like know me in the same way as the people who were there when I was on So Suave and nobody knew who the hell I was. What did you say here, Amar?
Well, the one thing I want to get into with the consistency there is, I think it's actually fair to change. You can talk about multiple topics, and you can switch your opinion within those topics. Like, my view of intersectional dynamics now isn't the same as it was 4 years ago. And I talk a lot about corporate stuff, and my view there isn't exactly the same. And I think talking about multiple topics is kind of what makes you human. And Ryan and I touched on this on the show we did on Saturday. If I have accounts in my timeline and you can be discussing anything. Like, you're discussing the Packers game, and suddenly you have one dude in there being like, buy Bitcoin. That's kind of like, that's going the wrong way, because you're authentic, but you're also being kind of, I'm autistic and Bitcoin is my special interest. Or the guy who, you can have a debate like, okay, should you be going for rice or potatoes for your pre-workout carb up? What's the optimal? Or should you do oatmeal? And the guy's like, eat meat, steaks and butter. And you have those guys, and I think those guys get so on message that they're inauthentic because they're just so one note.
You guys are going to laugh your ass off at this. I actually just put this in the afterword of book 4. It was one of the things I added at the end. Do you guys know who Stefan Woodward is, or Woodford is? He's a guy. He's the kid. He used to have long hair. Now he kind of cut it, but he's the guy, the kid from Rationality Rules, the Rationality Rules podcast. One of my favorite podcasts of all time. The guy he's funny. He's debated Stefan Molyneux a few times, and he's an atheist, and he tries to
that guy. Okay.
Rational. He has this one term, and I don't know if he came up with it or somebody else did, but I heard it through him, and it's called Jesus smuggling. Have you ever heard of Jesus smuggling? What it is?
Yes,
is like,
my aunt has a master's degree in it.
Yeah. So what happens is these guys will, like, these atheists will get into these ostensibly these debates with like a religious guy or a guy who's into creationism, and he's like an evolutionary atheist, and it's like the two are coming together and they're going to debate the validity of God and all this other stuff. And so they think, like, for the first like maybe 30 minutes of the debate that they're actually getting somewhere, right? They're actually having this back and forth between the two. Well, God exists, God doesn't exist, or this is evolution, this is creationism, this kind of stuff. And then like the last 20 minutes of the debate, it's like, can I pray for you now? It's like an altar call, right? It's like, well, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, blah, 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 right? And it's like, That's Jesus smuggling, because the only reason you had the debate was so that you could go and put like buy crypto, right? Or that's just one aspect of the smuggling aspect of it. Like, so you can be talking about something where you're getting into the manosphere, or you're doing this or you're doing that, and then suddenly it's like buy my Gumroad book on how to crush Twitter for $47.99 on Gumroad. And so you've had this great conversation, this really deep thing, and then all of a sudden it's like, here's the hard sell, here's the pitch. So what you thought was an honest conversation and an honest debate with somebody is Jesus smuggling, or it's crush Twitter smuggling, or
dude,
or
I've turned down so many collabs over that. John Somnez even. I like the guy. He's nice enough. He's got a big channel. To anybody else want to do a collab with him, that'd be great. And I'm just like, once I realized I'm not talking to him, but I'm talking about his talking points into his brand, I'm like, why would I waste my fucking time with that? I'd rather talk to an online nobody about buying Bitcoin.
That's a really good illustration, because a lot of people will say, well, why do you hang out? Why do you deal with Troy? Why do you deal with John? Why do you deal with Myron Gaines? Why do you? And I like, because here's the thing. None of those guys have smuggled anything. Not into me anyways. Like that, when I'm talking to them, in fact, I've said this before. I said, you know what? You save your pitch for the end of Rule Zero. You go and I don't mind if you do the pitch. We got to do it, right? I mean, that's what we're in. That's what we do. But if you're going, let's talk about hypergamy. Oh, and buy Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, like if I ask John, how's he doing? He doesn't send me revenue numbers. He says, I'm doing good. I'm under the weather. Like simple shit like that.
Right. He's human about things. People ask me this all the time. They go, Rollo, you're so under positioned with your Instagram. I go, because I want to show pictures of my dogs. I don't care. Like I'll say, okay, I got this podcast. Hey guys, if you want to see the podcast, here you go. But and maybe I'll put like a pitch for the book once in a while. But mostly I reserve my Instagram for dog pictures.
And I got omelets on mine. I got no reason to judge you.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even have one.
Yeah.
I have one.
The use. I just
people have asked me that before. People say, I want to see you jam. Okay. Put it on my Instagram. There you go. But it's like, am I talking to you or am I talking to the grift? Is it always on, or is it always just under the surface right there? You're just waiting for that moment to go and throw out here we go. Here's my
Bitcoin.
Buy Bitcoin. Yeah.
Carl had what was that point you brought up right at the beginning of our last show? That same thing. Just before buy Bitcoin, you were talking about that. The guys who, why the whole reason there was social media branding to begin with, as opposed to just normal branding. Do you remember this one or no?
Oh, I was drinking, but I think what it comes down to is like social media branding is easy to do. You don't actually have to have the receipts. And it's a very nice way of being able to gain that confidence without actually having to do the work. It's like, just wait until January 1st. You're going to see a fuck ton of pictures of people who are in the gyms, providing these cocksuckers open up the goddamn gyms again.
They will. For that.
Yeah, and you're going to have a lot of that happening. Now, get 4 weeks in, 98% of those people, you're never going to see them in the gym again, because they got the feel good. They got the feedback from their online friends that, oh yeah, you're doing good, girl. I can barely see those 250 pounds you got to lose. That ass looks magnificent after like 2 squats with those pink dumbbells. And it's kind of the same thing with a lot of the grift shit. My reasoning has always been that if you can command like a normal consulting rate, which runs from a couple of $100 an hour to about $1,000 an hour, a little bit depending on how high you are what your topic is, how high you are in the industry, et cetera, you're not going to spend your time doing $50 an hour consults. That's tradesman money. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to, if you're a millionaire, you're not going to invest a ton of money in doing cheap Gumroad products when what you earn from that would be a significantly lower return than just a balanced, normally managed index portfolio. Like if you have, let's just talk theory here. I could earn someone 5 to 6% annually in a fairly secure portfolio with a decent degree of stability. And if you have that on, let's say, $10 million, that's about $500,000 a year.
Hey, that's 6-figure hustles.
And at that point, you don't have to sit on Twitter all day and bang on about bullshit. You can just sit there and your money will arrive in the mail in a check every month.
Right.
Like Rollo said that, like if said that about the Manosphere earlier, if that guy made $20 million, why the fuck isn't he on an island with slave girls?
That's what I'd be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
I've always, it goes back to that article, Ryan, like do success. Yeah. Well, no, it's like, do success hustlers act like people who are successful? Do they actually teach you success? Why would they not be doing something that is like something that they like to do? Or so if they're creating real value instead of just like selling you the idea of selling real value. You and I have had this discussion before, and I think I've had this discussion with John on a few occasions. Is I come from a background in a lot of different things. Like I have a lot of experience, and I have a lot of, I've got book knowledge and I got street knowledge when it comes to like the stuff that I talk about. But a lot of the stuff that I learned as far as business is concerned really came from working in casinos, working for the gaming industry, working for promotional stuff, working in the liquor industry, and having to, like, it's one thing to have a product. Like I see guys, when it comes to business, I see it in sort of like three separate, I guess niches or are
Are you talking about the money, the idea man, and the sales man?
There's the guys who's the idea guys. Like I consider myself an idea guy. Those are usually the artists. Those are the guys who come up with a great plot for a movie, right? They're the guys that like say, this would be a great product. Let's sell this product. Flavored vodka, right?
Fat-free vodka. That one is brilliant.
Yeah, or it's something that is new, or it's something that's imaginative that you create a product. Wouldn't it be great if we did this? This is awesome. Like you're the imaginative kind of artistic guy. You're the ideas guy. And then there's the guy who is the salesman. And he's the guy who doesn't matter what the product is. He's just like, yeah, man, I could sell the hell out of that flavored vodka. Yeah, let's do that. Let's sell that out. Great. Now you've got idea, and you've matched it with the guy who is the sales, who has like this. He's just like phenomenal, like always be closing. That guy from Boiler Room, that dude right there, that's who you want paired with the guy who's like the ideas guy. But it requires one more guy, because salesman guy has jack shit for money. Ideas guy has no money. He's poor. He's dirt poor. He needs somebody to invest. We need a guy who's the money guy too. So you got to have the money guy, the idea guy, and you got to have the guy who's the sales. Right now in the hustle economy, you have to be all three of those dudes at the same time. You have to have a good product. You have to have something that people actually want. You have to have the ideas. You have to have the specialization to be imaginative, to think and innovate, to have some new idea. And I don't care what the idea is. It can be something as stupid as a pet rock, or it can be what is it? Bitcoin. Like, was it? What's the technology? Blockchain. You can come up with blockchain technology for that you can use all over the place. It doesn't matter what the idea is. If you don't have the dude who can sell that and pitch that, then it's just an idea. Mm-hmm. If you don't have the guy who can say, hey, I got the money to put that out there so we can actually produce this product so that the sales guy can go out there and we all win, great.
Oh yeah, but everybody's got a script, but not every script has a producer.
It all comes down to one dude. And I remember this because when I was working in graphic design, when I was like prior to desktop publishing and everything, I can remember a time. I'm going to date myself.
You're like doing lithographs with X-Acto knives?
You have to, yeah, exactly. They had specialties in graphic design, in print graphic design. They had a guy who did the litho. You had the guy who's doing the photos, stat camera. You had the guy who's doing the paste up galleys. You had the guy who's doing typography. You had the WordPress, or all these guys doing all the pressmen and everything else. You had all these special dudes that were doing this job to just produce a newspaper every morning or a periodical or whatever all the time. You had people who were like specialized in those particular things. And now when we make it all digital, suddenly all that whole community, everything has to be one person. And it's the same thing right now, I think, in the hustle economy, where people go, you can make massive amounts of money online. Yeah, if you have a good idea, if you have the money to produce it, and if you're a good salesman. And the only thing people focus on right now is the sales part. It doesn't matter. It could be the shittiest product. It doesn't matter what. You could be selling like nothing, like ice. Right? You could sell anything. And as long as you can like get out there and you know what? My ice is the best goddamn ice in the world. It's going to cost you $1,000. Well, it's just ice, right? But it doesn't matter, because the idea is that if you're enthusiastic enough and if you pitch it hard enough and you're the guy, and if you're not doing it, you're not selling ice, then
you're talking about commodification.
Right. And so a full industry gets developed around the idea of you can be a grifter and you can say, it doesn't matter what you're selling, you just be the best grifter in the whole damn world. And we're going to go, and here's a seminar to teach you how to be the best damn grifter in the world. So the grifters are teaching the grifters how to sell ice.
Yeah, I think that's the funniest thing about the whole thing for me is that you have a generation of grifters who all have the same website design done by the same dude. And they're all running the same kind of outrage marketing. Like my favorite moment was when I came back after like a 9-month hiatus and noticed that a dude has been trying to beef with me for like 3 fucking months, and I didn't even notice it was beefing. And the only response I could give him, like, if you want to beef for clout, you better find someone who's a little bit more active, man. Sorry.
When I was interviewing Sterling Cooper, when I first was introduced to Sterling Cooper, and I did an interview with him, and I was asking him about like pornography and stuff, and I said, how do they make money now? Right? Because it's free. I mean, you can just you can go anywhere and jerk off to whatever on whatever porn tube, whatever. And he's like, well, there's 2 ways to do it. Like most of the time it's women who are making the most amount of money, and they're just basically selling themselves as the brand.
Yeah.
And then the other part is it's not so much the money that they're making on the shoots, it's the gravitas that they get for being a quote unquote porn star, right? And so it's not so much the product as it is the sales of whatever product you have. And the other part was this, he told me, I said, well, how do these porn sites make money? He says, well, they sell subscriptions. I'm like, who's paying for it? Well, some people will for, certain things. And what happens is guys will go and they'll get a subscription. This is pornography, but you can like use the same model for pretty much anything. Is once you start putting like $10 a month on Netflix or $10 a month to have
won't go through the effort of canceling it.
People won't cancel it. They just forget about it. And it's just part of the money that's their expenses all the time. And they do the same thing with porn sites, or they'll do the same with whatever.
That's the same thing. We had that debate in an industry I was involved in some years back during my startup days. Mm-hmm. And the idea here was if you pre-sell someone enough of a loadout and there's a long enough time between the time they pay that bill and when it comes time for them to collect, they kind of forget that they paid you, $150,000 up front. And once you get them inside, you can start to upsell them on all this bullshit that amounts to another $6-7 grand. But they think of the total price as being $6-7 grand, not what they paid initially plus $6-7 grand.
And it's still all commodification too, Rollo. Like information property right now, I'd argue is like the soya bean. Internet has made it. That's what I mean. Like graphic designers, you don't need the lithograph guy. It's all soya beans. Everything knows. Like Rollo, your book's out there. Same as the porn industry. Porn is basically cheapened. It used to have its own theater, and now it's basically a click away. I could technically click porn and have it in 15 seconds flat. Mm-hmm. And then once you have something as like soya bean level commodities, how do you get people to buy edamame beans? Well, you throw Gordon Ramsay's face on it and have him yell at some people, calling them Muppets or whatever for 3 hours on TV. I don't even think it's a bad thing necessarily. It's good in that the information that you've been trying to spread is commodity now. It's cheap. It's pennies.
It is.
Costs nothing. So now brand is really package it up, put a brand about it, put it out there, which is why it irks me, because it's like, imagine somebody selling poisonous soybeans because it just was too much effort to buy a bunch of soybeans and package them up. I'm like, how fucking lazy are you? When you can't give a guide on how to get laid on Tinder, when you basically have like 800 versions of it out there. Instead, they got to come up with some stupid green line bullshit that doesn't solve anything, get you laid 8 times in 10 years. And yet they still, and that's still a grift. That's, again, I know you don't like it because it's not valuable or it's not helping or it's like scammy or it's not authentic. For me, I'm just like, how lazy, how shitty do you have to be at your job where you can't package this and put it out there?
I feel you, because like I said before, I was the ideas guy, and I can remember a time when the money went away, but the product was still going, and the business was still going. And when one person, rather when it's not the trifecta, right? When it's not the ideas guy, the sales guy, and the money's guy, when it's not that the trifecta, it's like the stool falls one way or the other, right? And like the ideas guy can just throw out you throw spaghetti against the wall all day long. It doesn't mean that they're great ideas, But he's the one that's coming. He's like this creative genius. He's throwing all this great stuff out there. And then there's the guy who's like the sales guy. If one guy dominates that sort of trifecta, then it screws up the whole thing. And I think that that's really what's kind of happening in the hustle economy, because everybody is just the sales guy right now.
Yeah, he's the easiest guy.
Yeah.
All you got to do is talk a lot.
And so and to your point, hold on, Ryan, to your point real quick though, is like, I get what you're saying. And it becomes down like, okay, so the rational male, the red pill, whatever, it's a commodity right now. That's how you get schmucks like, black pill, Jesus, whatever, whoever it is, right?
Right.
Because it's a commodity, or you get like Corey Wayne, or you get 33 Secrets guy, or you get MGTOW Dictionary.
Yeah, and the cost of entry is so low. Basically, two of those jobs are like, how do you fuck those up when you're being given every handhold?
So those guys are sales guys, but I'm still the ideas guy, and I go, why would I want to put out, like, I still feel, and maybe this is just me being a schmuck here, but like, I still feel like I have a lot, hopefully with this next book, I feel like I have a lot more content. Like I have a lot more good ideas to put out there, but because of what's going on in the manosphere, whatever your industry is, it doesn't have to be in the manosphere, but what's going on in the manosphere, I'm like, fuck that. Why would I even bother doing that? Because if I even hint that I've got a new idea, these guys snap it up, repackage it, trademark it, and say, here's this great new idea. And they make it sound like it's like they'll swoop underneath, they'll like undercut you, or they'll come and get you. So it's like,
and they screw it up too. That's the worst part. Like I actually want to add to the sidebar series Rational Mail and show people how to properly read your shit from the car.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're shaking your head.
The hustlers. Yeah, well, I wish I could do that. It's like, so if you can't beat them, join them, right? I mean, that's when I talk to John or I talk to these other guys.
Well, that's where we are now.
Yeah, it's like, well, you can't beat them, join them. So why aren't you ripping people off, Rollo? Why don't you just simply go and do that? Because they already see you as an authority. Why don't you go rip them off? And it's like, I don't know, man.
Well, that's short term. That's not good strategy.
It's like, God,
that's like the chloroform game. That doesn't work because it's not going to be an iterative process. Eventually, somebody's going to arrest you.
Let's be honest. Why would Pablo Escobar rip off some no-lint street dealer on a quarter? He's got better coke at home.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, he's the source. He's the source of the coke in the first place, right?
So the thing is, like, but my annoyance is the same as Rollo's. Like, at least I don't mind if people rip off shit. I don't mind if people repeat it. The most important thing is that the knowledge gets out there. But if you're going to do it, at least do it in a competent fashion, dude. Like, and at least if you're going to podcast from a car, get something decent, not a wife car.
That's another thing, Carl, is like when people misconstrue those guys who are sort of the third party guys, like dealing your shit, like Sam the drug dealer, right? And 33 Secrets or Corey Wayne or whoever is dealing my stuff, and then somebody gets
stomping
on it. And they die from it. Then they don't go back to 33 Secrets. They come to me. They go, hey man, you said that women can't love men. What? Can you explain yourself? I'm like, no, dude, I didn't. Where did you hear?
Who are you?
Like, did you even read what I said in Rollo Tomassi number 6? Did you ever read that? No, I heard it from this guy over here, and he said you can't love, and I believe it, and I'm depressed. I'm gonna hang myself because of something that was misconstrued from somebody else about the stuff that you were saying, right? Like, I've never said that. I've never said that women can't love men. I said that women fundamentally cannot love you in a way that you think they should be able to love you. I didn't say they couldn't, but if you go and you read, it requires more brain cells and reading all that than what's being given to you by the street dealer who has 4 different YouTube channels, who's figured out that that's going to be a real quick way to make a lot of money really fast because of suckers like you who won't go and actually, try to go dig any deeper than what the street dealer is selling you.
Yeah, and in honor of Mish, I'm going to name that the sad Pac-Man fallacy.
Yeah, exactly. You're getting it third hand, but guess who do they go to? They don't go back to those dudes. They come to me. They go, you're the one that said that this. No, I didn't. Where'd you get that? Oh, I got it from him. Well, now I have to sit here and take the time to hold your hand and walk you through the process of how they got to the point where they're selling you this bullshit that they say that I said, and that's not true. And then I have to go on, and then I get, that's one aspect. The other aspect is when like guys go, hey, Rollo, we'd like to interview you about your opinion on women can't love men. Can you be on my YouTube podcast for, an hour, and we're going to cut it up and make you look like shit anyways? Can you please do that? No, I don't. And I don't owe you that, but it's like, if I'm the authority and people are coming to me for things that I didn't say, that somebody said that I said, now I've got to go. It's what is it? To refute bullshit is an order of magnitude greater than it is to create bullshit. And so when you're at a point where you're the ideas guy and they go, your idea was bad. No, that's not my idea. No, well, the salesman over here told me that this was the idea. It's like, no, it's not. And so it's like this constant, it's like playing whack-a-mole all the time because you're one dude. You're one guy that's trying to manage all this stuff. And Ryan, you and I have talked about this before where, was it like when you are a guy who's sort of like in this old order way of thinking, you're in this, if you have like, we've used, who is it? What is it? God, the name is escaping. A psychologist. Like if you're like a guy who's a genuine like evolutionary psychologist, or you're like Dr. what the hell? Not Jeff, but
Tinker.
Not well, whatever. Doesn't matter what you are. Like you're a guy who's gone to college for 8 years to get your own private practice. Dr. Sean Smith. If you are the guy who is specializing in, or maybe you're even like Dr. Babe or something like that, you've actually gone to school, you've got the doctorate, you can put the DR in front of your name, and then you actually have gone through all of this process that everyone told you was the way that you should. This is how you become legitimate. This is how people will take you seriously. You will become an authority if you have the doctorate in front, the PhD in front of your name, and you can start your own practice. And you're making $85 an hour helping people with their head case. And then you get a guy like John, or you get a guy like Rollo Tomassi, or you get a guy like any of us for that matter. Now we're authorities on intersexual dynamics, and you went and spent the last 8 to 10 years getting your doctorate and forming your own private practice. And now suddenly you're not the authority, and you're not making even a fraction of the amount of money that somebody online, like 33 Secrets guy or whoever, online is making, because they figured out the grift. Because they figured out the hustle and you didn't. And now you have to make up. You have to catch up.
Well, you know what? All those authorities, I don't feel any sympathy for them, because they've been riding off of that authority for so long, thinking, and you can tell psychology is like, well, we have the APA, we're the authority. But meanwhile, they're not helping anybody. Yeah. That authority only goes so far. And it's at the internet age, now that people are able to swap notes. They're like, yeah, went to the shrink. All they did was send me to the shrink more. Never actually fixed anything. Every military guy I've known has had at some point been issued a shrink visit or 2 or 10 or however many. Not one guy has said that helped. So I don't give a shit if somebody goes to school for 8 years to take an underwater basket weaving degree. I'm not going to trust you any more than the guy who has a bunch of baskets in his home gym. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think we've reached that point now where institutions have cashed out their level of trust, kind of like people were telling you to do, which you haven't done yet. I'm sure there's a number for it. I don't know. Maybe it's like a Joe Rogan one, 100 million. You'll be on Spotify talking about how great women are. I don't know. 20
million, man. Give me my island. 20 million in my own private island. That's my price.
Have them earn as much as the grifters say they have. But that's what I mean. It's like there's no trust to them. They've proven it. So that authority doesn't mean anything anymore. So yeah, you can have a cost sunk fallacy going, well, I went to school for 8 years. It's like, remember Happy Gilmore? The worst part, shooters, you've been doing this your whole life.
Well, the most annoying thing to me personally is that, well, nobody who has a doctorate uses the fact that they're a doctor for anything other than free upgrades in airplanes and hotels. Secondly, why is it that everyone who puts doctor in front of their name has like a bullshit doctorate, like doctorate of education or a PsyD instead of an actual PhD or an MD?
People lost their minds when I turned down Dr. Phil's offer to come on the show. I could have done that. I could have, but I thought it wasn't me. right? They wanted red meat. They wanted me to basically go there and scream. In fact, they were concerned that I wouldn't be animated enough screaming across the table at Tommy Lahren on that show.
Oh yeah, and they give you a script. Here, read this. It's like, no.
And the icing on the cake is that they didn't even want to pay you. Like they didn't even want to pay you to like they would fly you down, or they pay for your hotel and your flight, but nothing else. And I'm like, so I got to go down there and get myself pilloried because exposure. I'm like, and then they completely they tried to get me down there. They tried to get Donovan down there too.
Yeah.
But didn't Donovan go for it?
No, nobody did. Not that I know of. I don't think it really had
even Donnie, he's all for any exposure. Good exposure.
Donovan, John probably would have been really good on that, but he's in Japan, so he's not gonna do it. But the thing, at the end of the day, it's like at the end of the day, it was like I'm like, do I really want to sell my value out like that? Like, and Henry here was saying this is I think Rollo's entrepreneurial play here is to create a Rollo Tomassi certification course. I could do that, and the moment I did that, everybody go, "Oh, who's he think he is? You know, he's not. He doesn't have a real degree. What the fuck's wrong with him? He's
Once
just
you got 100 people that get the cert, though, that shit goes away.
Yeah.
But then, do you want to go that route? You could. I don't know. It might even be worthwhile, but.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, would you create? Because I think the major issue with our quote-unquote industry here is that there's absolutely no barrier to entry.
Right.
Any retard with an internet connection can get into this, and it kind of shows with the products you motherfuckers are putting out, and I know you're watching. It's like most of this is like Rollo Tomassi for guys who had to wear a helmet at the playground. Rollo Tomassi for guys who rode the short bus to school.
Mm-hmm.
Rollo Tomassi for the loud dude. It's like it's not to fluff anyone too much or too little, but it's all derivative products and it's all repetitive products, and maybe buying one of them can make sense, because if you're getting like the speed cliff notes on something that helps you move forward faster, that can sometimes be worth paying money for. It's the same reason you pay tax accountants and lawyers. But if you're buying course after course after course, and you're about 7 months down the line, you're drawing green lines and pictures of yourself with your female family members, and you're sitting there and you still haven't gotten laid, then what are you doing this for?
I know. And it's a tough position to be in too. Like trust me, it is just surreal for me to go, yeah, I think I'm going to turn down Dr. Phil. You know, in my life,
authority used to be a big thing.
I would say those words, right? I'm like, are those actually coming out of my mouth right now? I'm going to turn down Dr. Phil.
Everybody's doing it though. Like Bill Burr had a great talk about that. Comedians, Johnny Carson used to be your thing. Now you tell a comedian to come on the Tonight Show, they're just like, no. Why? I'm
like, there's like people say, would you go on Joe Rogan? I'm like, yeah, I would go on Joe Rogan, but like, I would have to go on Joe Rogan and change. Like, I'd have to go in there like in a certain frame of mind. Same thing. Like if I go on Tim Pool, I would have to like go in there with a certain frame of mind, because I know that even as much, and I respect Tim Pool, I think he's a good guy, and I think he's at least he's, you know, his heart's in the right place. But I know that he also has a business to run, which is red meat. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's got to be red meat. It's got to be something that's going to get more, like, people still are concerned with their clicks. They're still concerned. And that's another, I think, aspect of all this that doesn't get talked about a lot is once you get into this, you can't stop. And it's not because it's like an addiction or something like that, because what people will do is they'll quit their day job, they'll quit their cubicle job, and they'll go, man, I can make so much more money being a guru and a niche expert in red pill or patriarchy pill or father pill or dad pill or whatever pill, and I can make so much more money. And they can, and you know what sucks? They're right. They can make
$70 a month to join my chat group.
So much more money than they were when they were making like $36,000, $46,000, $56,000 a year in their cubicle job or their trade job or whatever. And all they got to do is sit in front of the camera and buy a mic for, you know, $100 or whatever. And that's like pushing it, man. You don't even have to do that to get started, but they're still making more money. And then the best thing is they think that they're helping. They start to believe that whole I'm an authority kind of guy. And then what happens is they go, well, I can't go back to what I was doing before because lifestyle creep. Now that I'm not making $50,000 a year. I'm making $100,000 a year because I started my own liminal order. I started this online thing, and you have to keep going. You have to stay fresh, and you have to be that guy. Remember the sales guy? You have to be that guy 24/7, because the moment you take a break, the next guy comes in and he whips it out from under you. And he says, oh, no, don't join that order. Join the dad pill order. Join the apex of men, the pinnacle of men order. Like, here's my, for $14.99 a month, we'll really change your life for you. And we're going to, you can have 2.5 kids and a Great Dane in the yard or some shit like that, right?
Well, just also remember that at that point, you're also paying off a shed.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it's like Tim Pool has talked about this before. He's like, I can't take a break. I can't take any time off, because the moment he does is the moment people forget about him, because that's what the hustle economy is really all about. It's 24/7. It's always on. I do 2 podcasts. There was a time where I only did one. I only did one show on Sundays with Pat Campbell, and we would never go for more than an hour. Right now we're at 2 hours with you guys. Then I got Rule Zero. First it was a Red Man group, then it was Rule Zero. Let's try this, let's try that. Now I got a Patreon group. Now when do I have time to even go fishing? When do I have time to go fire up the sled? When do I have time? Because and even when I'm there, I'm thinking about, oh shit, I should be online. Did you hear what just happened with Tommy Lahren? I better go and do something about that soon. I better cut this short so I can get home and stay on top of things, so people will, think I'm relevant. You're sales guy all the time, morning, noon, and night. In fact, you don't even want to go to sleep.
You don't have to, though.
You don't have to, but when you get to a certain level, of experience, like Joe Rogan doesn't have to worry about it, because Joe Rogan has his name. He's a celebrity. He does his thing. That's what he wants to do. He's also a comedian and everything else. But like, if you get to a point where you're like in between, or you're just, or your lifestyle creep has gotten to a point where you're dependent on keeping that flow going all the time,
I think is what it is. It's the decisions you guys make. Guys start seeing this hustle, and they start hustling, and they're only focused on acquisition of new customers, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They aren't worried about any kind of customer loyalty, and this is where the providing $10 of value for $5 a product thing comes in. Mm-hmm. They aren't worried about, what's the thing? I would rather have 1,000 loyal customers than 100,000 fickle ones.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the guys who chase that dream, because 100,000 fickle guys will pay you 1,000 times more than 1,000 loyal guys. But the instant, like you said, as soon as you take a break, they're like, who the fuck is this guy? We're out of here. And then they go on to the next grift.
Right.
And then you start buying in that lifestyle creep, because you give some dude who is earning 40,000 a year, here's 100 grand this year. What are they going to do? They're going to go out and buy a Lamborghini because I can afford it. And then next year, when they have to pay the insurance premiums on it, they're like, oh, now I'm stuck. Meanwhile,
right.
And I think we've talked about this before. You call it earning money slow, which I agree with. Like in my case, I know how much I need. And I'm kind of there now, so I can earn more, but I don't have to. And so as long as I'm like upfront, and Carl is really good about keeping me on task on this, ruthlessly cutting any of those like grifting, fickle types out. Anybody that's in like any of my communities or watches my stuff, I usually know them by name. I could fuck up and they would forgive me before I fuck up again, as opposed to the fickle guys who will just leave. And I think that's where you kind of have to come at it from, and then don't do the lifestyle creep, because now I can go fishing if I want to. I'll tell the Patreon guys, hey, I'll make it up to you next week. I'm going to go fishing for some fucking reason.
Right. Or I need a week off. I know.
And you're there too. Like, for the most part, everybody knows if you can't make a Rule Zero, we got other guys that'll do it. If your Sunday thing, I'm taking this Sunday off, daughter's graduation or whatever the hell you're doing. Yeah, it's fine. We'll see you next week. If you took like 3 months off, I don't know. But I mean, Delphine, how long did she take off? Like 6 months?
I don't know. Yeah, but in that time, she's using that time to reinvent herself. She's using that time to sort of like say, okay, when I come back, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah. It's like I wasn't.
You switched from a toque to that fishing cap you got going on, so you reinvented yourself.
I still wear the toque.
Slayer shirts to flannel.
Well, what's funny is like people know when I'm like playing fast and loose is when I'm in here in a tank top, like in a Steel Panther tank top or something like that. Oh, I'm gonna be one of those shows. This is my salt of the earth look.
Carl's got it. Like Carl, you can walk in and out and 6 months, show up again, and nobody like fuck whatever. It's actually kind of brilliant.
Well, to be honest, like I do have like I would estimate at like between 400 and 600 guys have been with me from like 1,000 followers.
Mm-hmm.
And I know all those guys because I have DMs going with a lot of them. And whatever I get beyond that, because like my approach with this was like Rollo gave me, like I got three pieces of advice when I started here. My advice from Mike Cernovich was just produce content and get stuff out there, be regular, and just make content nonstop for your first year. And that's a good tip.
Mm-hmm.
Illimitable Man said that focus on gathering the audience you want. And that is, for me, that's, I have a fairly specific target audience that I aim for. And everything outside of that, I'm not too heavily concerned with. And Rollo's tip was number 3, was I would never want this to be my main gig.
Yeah.
Because then I'd be tempted to start doing shit that would bring me off message, either hustle more or sell products I disagree with.
Pandering thing.
Pandering to the audience or pandering to get a bigger audience. And honestly, I just want to come on here, call the entire audience flipping retards, yell at the people I'm doing the podcast with, and have them all love me for it. That's kind of
the Vince McMahon technique. I get it.
That's kind of what I like. Well, I like this because I can come on here, and if guys think I'm bringing them value, they won't take offense to me being harsh with them, and I don't take offense to them coming at me like, Carl, you fucked up. Why the hell did you leave out page numbers in your last book? And I'll be like, yeah, sorry about that. I'll fix that. But now you're one of the owners of the rare 45 copies of Gendernomics 1 that has the old cover and no page numbers.
This is going to be the cover of my success book.
Whamming your way to success. Dr. Rollo R. Tomassi.
Yeah, people in the chat were like, you should go on in a 3-piece suit. I'm like, yeah, this is my shark suit. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, that's going to be like,
where's this thing? 4-hour millionaire.
By the way, from a Canadian and a European, we've really got to up your suit game. Like sharkskin suits and that pinstripe you brought. It's like, you can tell you're from Nevada. I'm just saying.
That is like a pit boss suit is what you go to any of the casinos down here, you will see the dude look just like that.
Yeah, it's better than Steve Harvey. I'll say that much.
Hey dude, I told you once I bought a suit at Walmart.
Oh yeah, but you were hungover and you needed it for a meeting or something.
God, that would be funny. I should actually do a book cover like that. I could probably do a really nice thing that says, Rollo Tomassi, 4-hour millionaire. I guarantee you people will be like, dude, where do I get your book? I can make it as a total troll and people would still take it seriously.
No, but just do it like a sex book, like bossing her pit.
Yeah,
and have you in that picture.
How to get? Yeah, exactly. That would be funny. I just here at the we're at the 2-hour mark. I'll let you guys go here. I know you don't want to do 3 hours with me, but I was gonna say is that I have. This is going to sound really schmaltzy, but like I have an investment that I want to stay real, right? I mean, I don't want to get to a point where it's like I have to go and create a program. So I don't want to have to sell something on Gumroad, right? I don't want it to get to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm out of ideas. Now I just have to be Mr. Sales Guy all the time. I don't want to do that. I don't think I'll ever get that point, but like for me, it's always a balance between like, oh, what you're saying before, Ryan, it's like, I could be a millionaire right now. Do I want to be a millionaire? Okay, fine. But what would I have to do to get that? Would I have to sell like teachable classes? Would I have to sell something on Gumroad that I really don't put myself behind, like 47-page, pamphlet on Gumroad and people will buy it? I could do that and sell myself out and, grab the bag and run like, Bella Thorne. But as I was saying before, is like, I'm not get rich quick guy. I'm get rich slow guy. And I think that's a much healthier way to do it because first of all, you stay sort of, you stay grounded into who you actually are. And I know that sounds really esoteric and woo woo, but I think there's some value to that. And then I also think that your durability remains intact if that's the way you go about it. There's all kinds of guys right now who could say, hey dude, just go do this, you'll make a lot of money and grab the bag and run. And you could do that, but then you have the one bag and you ran, and everybody thinks you're a son of a bitch because you did that. Like Bella Thorne. Bella Thorne could have made that $2 million just like slow trickle. She could have made that $2 million in 1 year. Instead, she made it in 1 month. Not even that, 1 week, 1 day, right? I mean, she made like 36 hours. She had $2 million in on OnlyFans, right? To show off a black and white picture of like her side boob or something. And that was the deal. There was no agreement saying I'm going to show you a cooter shot or something like that. It was just, here you go.
Yep.
And she took it and she ran. And you know what? No one will ever take her seriously again because she grabbed the money and ran. Now people go, well, she's got fuck you money, right? $2 million. Now she said she had more. She didn't have to do that. She was worth like 10 or 12 million bucks already, but she did that anyways. And now what's she done? She's ruined her reputation. And I hope she invests that money wisely, because she ain't going to pull that shit again. She's not going to, because she's valueless now. She's basically cashed out her value all immediately, just like that.
Well,
I don't see that.
I kind of like our little group that formed post the convention that shall not be mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is a certain degree of calling each other out on bullshit within this group.
Accountability. Yes.
And it's not like nobody here is going to tell each other what to do or what not to do, but you're going to ask those questions. Is this really something you want to put out there? Because I don't think this is a good move for you. Like, what the fuck are you thinking? Are you broke or what? And I think everyone kind of needs that accountability group in their life, like the guys who will just be real with them and tell them, like, listen, dude, you're drinking too much. Listen, dude, you've kind of been slipping up at work. Okay, dude, you're getting seriously fat. I have to get an extra tank of gas to get past you in the parking lot.
Stop the insanity. Yeah, that's true. And I think that when guys ask me about like, oh, Rollo, how do I create a network of guys, or how do I find my tribe or whatever? I said, well, I think part of that is really accountability, just like you're saying. Like Rule Zeros was one of my tribes, if not one of my main tribes. I expect you guys to tell me if you think I'm full of shit, and I'll tell you guys if I think you're full of shit.
And you know what? A couple guys fell off. It's not like we were all of it. There was a bunch. Like Hunter used to be part of it, but he liked the idea of the grift and making all the money. It didn't work out, but
well. And then I'm not a big fan of Hunter anymore, but I will say this is he fell into that. He fell into the, I'm going to quit my day job. I'm going to start doing this full time. And now you have to keep it going, because you get to the point where your bills are commensurate with the money that you're making off of this new gig. And now to the point where it's like, well, if I don't keep doing this, then I won't get paid and my wife will leave me, or I can't put food on the table, they can't keep the lights on kind of thing. And I have to keep doing this. And so if that means that I have to sell out my friends who actually put me into this position in the first place, well, then so be it. And that's
very short-sighted, in my opinion.
That's no way to live, man. It's like, remember, Ryan, you and I have talked about Athol K.
Yeah,
Athol K he is a lesson in what not to do.
Oh, God,
Athol K, and I don't know if people know who Athol K is, but Athol K was the guy who wrote Married Man's Sex Life. And if you don't know who he is, it's probably because you're part of this new generation who doesn't really give a shit about any. You're a temporal provincial. You only care about right now. And
like
what's
he's part
coming.
of the same, I guess, graduating class as you, right? You guys are about the same kind of.
I remember because I became aware of Athol K right around the time that I started the Rational Male blog. So it was like 2010, 2011 when I became aware of him. And I bounced ideas off of him. And I was actually in his forum for a little while. And for a very, very long time, I suggested that if you're a married guy and you're trying to employ like red pill principles, then go and read Married Man's Sex Life. And then he changed it up, and then he started bringing people in, and then he made a lot of money.
He brought his wife in, and she brought a bunch of other chicks in.
And he was a medical professional who quit his job and decided he was going to do this full time. People saw pictures of him, and after a while, it gets to the point where he's making all that, lifestyle creep. He was making a lot of money off the books and off of the things that he was doing. He started doing coaching. He started doing all the, whatever. And then it all fell apart because the message that he was putting out in his coaching and in everything that came post Married Man, he even rewrote Married Man's Sex Life. a new edition called like with a mindful attraction plan. And so it got watered down and watered down and watered down because he brought so many people in who didn't have that interest and so people fell away. And now he's in arrears on his house or whatever. That last I heard, he was like in, what was he, in foreclosure or some shit like that? I don't know. You don't even know where he's gone. People forgot all about the guy. But back in 2010,
heart attack, man, he almost died.
Yeah, and
well, I do think that's part of the challenge with this, because people go into it and they're like, I'm going to go balls deep in this grift I have going. And they don't have a concern for other parts, because there are certain things. Bertrand Russell has this amazing quote that it's clear that thought is not free if the expression of certain opinions provides you for making a living.
mm-hmm.
But the truth is that a lot of well-reputation companies won't hire you if your face is on the first page of Google saying whammon ain't shit.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people won't hire you if you have a face tattoo that says cocksucker. Certain things are kind of obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these guys, when they first quit their day jobs, they love that freedom. So they go off the deep end and just make themselves unemployable forever. And that means they burn their boats and they have no option other than to go forwards. And once you're at that point, why not try to become a cult leader or a guru with a huge ass beard talking about fornication or something, because you have no other options left. And that's kind of been my take with a lot of the guys. It's just like, these are people with no other options, because the guys who have other options, they're more on the, okay, yeah, I can make some good money here, but if the pain in the ass outweighs the income earned, then I can take it or leave it.
Mm-hmm.
But the guys who stick around no matter what are guys with no other better option.
I think I'm wondering, like, when I look at like books that have been written, like Crush Twitter, or how to, the brand of me, how to make yourself, like what, these success porn kind of guru sort of books, like the one I think of the most, and this is an old book, is Launch by Jeff Walker. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Launch by Jeff Walker. John turned me on to that and I started reading it, and then it became clear. I'm like, okay, now I know what all these guys are doing, and now I know where this is coming from, and I know where the template has been set. Whether or not Jeff Walker decided that that's what's going to be the ultimate end of his sort of launch program, that's neither here nor there. But what happens is that those guys become ultimate sales guy. They become just that. It's all about the next offer, the next pitch, the next this, the next program, the next whatever, and I'm not coming down on that, because people make a lot of money on that, and people, the numbers are there. You can't argue against the numbers. But what I think gets lost in the mix, particularly in 2020, is the hustle economy and the price and the cost of putting yourself into it. Like, don't get into this unless you are prepared to do these things, unless you are grounded in this, unless you have a good family, unless you have people who are support, unless you have an accountability group, because you will get to the point where you will do things that you didn't think that you were capable of doing, because you have to sustain the money, you have to sustain the hustle, you have to keep it going. You won't be able to take a vacation, like all these things that people don't think about. I'm wondering if, like, and maybe we could do it, but I'm wondering if it wouldn't be a good idea to write a book that sort of gives guys who want to get into this, like, quit your day job. Like, was it the 4-hour work week? You want to get into that, great. But there's a lot of things that go along with that you have to think of before you decide that this is something that you want to get into. And are you getting into it for the right reason, or are you just doing it because you want to make a lot of money, which there's nothing wrong with that. But once you've made that money, are you going to be get rich slow guy, or are you going to be get rich fast guy? Are you going to take the money and run? What are you going to do? And I don't think there's any kind of like really worn out. There's no education for that, because this is new territory.
Mm-hmm. I like that part about it, though, because then it's the one thing that I always hated about the military and about corporate. It's all laid out in front of you. It's all monotonous. It's all the same thing. And the military at least will like throw you a port visit every now and again, so you can have a good party, work hard, play hard. But the part that's I like about this, aside from the money, is that every day I get to make a decision. Like, I find the weirdest decisions are actually very valuable. Like, make less videos, for example. When I was doing like 5 videos a week, I was like crawling along, 100, 200 subscribers a month. But then I stopped, just did one a week, maybe put a little bit extra into it, start climbing like 800, 900, 1,000, getting bigger. And I'm like, oh, so it turns out that I don't have to have that guilt because I'm working from home and I can take some time off. Spend some time wasting here, not work a 16-hour day and still not only produce better content, but do better. But I love that. Like, imagine that. It's like telling the guy to stop trying so hard with women and you'll actually attract more women because you look more aloof. Completely counterproductive, and it works great. And I like the meta narratives that kind of come out of it. You know what I mean?
Some people are not built for being in control of their own lives, right? And I hate to say that, it sounds like really like snotty and conceited, but it's true. Like,
you're kind of right.
People need regimen. They need routine. They need to know that, okay, I go here, I work for this amount of hours, I get this amount of money, I go home, and then my time is my own. And people go, well, that sounds like slavery to me. And like, yeah, I can understand from this side of it, it does. But I will tell you this is I've been in that. I've been in the corporate gig. I've been in the in-house design department. I've been in the agency department. I did that for most of my career. And then I got into the gig economy. And I tell you what's funny is, like, people say, well, you need to be more responsible and you need to take on, I've never been more responsible and more accountable than I have since I started getting into the gig economy. And now technically, I guess I'm in the hustle economy too. But it's like most people are not cut out for that. They are not cut. I would say most guys who come from that, I know I had to deal with this myself, is like, if you have a wife who's used to X amount of money coming in, and we're going to go on vacation 2 weeks of the year, and we're going to do this, and the kids got to go here, and the kids got to go to college, and the kids got to go to soccer practice and all this stuff. And you have this regimen, and you go, and you pull a Hunter, right? And you go, I'm out. I'll screw this job. I'm going to make money doing this. Your wife's going to be like, what the fuck are you like? Are you having a midlife crisis? Is there something wrong with you?
Oh, now here's the married red pill approach in that. I love this part because lets you know right now, should you be telling guys about how to handle a relationship? If you can make a major decision and either you haven't prepared for it well enough with like a 2-year war chest just in case, because startups take time to get going, or you have your relationship on point to the point where a wife doesn't get to obligate you through so much that you're basically trapped.
Right.
Or let's say she does all that, you fixed it, you're working. Are you willing to like leave this relationship because this is what I'm doing? It's my decision and that's it. Consequences be damned.
Right. It is tough, man, too. That's a really good crossover with what we're talking about. Like, you want to talk about a red pill crossover with all of this? It's like, are you the guy? Is your relationship, is your marriage, is your relation, whatever your long-term is it your frame? Can you do this? Can you say, you know what? I'm going to quit my day job. I'm going to quit my cubicle job, and I'm going to start the liminal order or apex order of men, and we're all going to grow our beards and do push-ups at 4 a.m. And I'm going to make a lot of money at it. And here we go. And maybe you are making money at it. Are you in a relationship where you can like say something like that, and your wife will go, okay, honey, sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Or whether you can plow through when she complains about it and she either learns to comply or she decides to leave and you're prepared for all of that. Because I will say this, when you told your wife you were going to do this thing on your own, I remember you kind of worded it, and correct me if I'm wrong, or something. Yeah, here, I'm going to leave this. It's not going to be as stable, but it's going to work out better in the end. It's like going to make more money at the end. She's like, all right, cool. Because she trusts you. And mine, same way. Or I'm going to do this. She goes, cool, kick ass. Like even the Twitch thing, that was amazing. And I'm like, I'm kind of hedging. Like, do I want to just play games on Twitch as like a second avenue? And she's like, just go for it.
Yeah. After a while, I think once you prove yourself, once the money comes in, and once you say, hey, look, I'm making this amount of money, I'm making way more money than I was when I was working a corporate gig. Like, and this wasn't just me like doing Rollo Tomassi stuff. Like when I started doing freelance, when I became my own boss, and I decided who I wanted to work with, because I had such a network of guys in the liquor industry or in the gaming industry. And I say, hey, I'll do this promo for you. I'll do this brand for you. I'll do this, whatever for you. I'll work for you for 4 months, and then you'll pay me X amount of dollars. And it's more money than I ever would have. Like 4 months of work for in some cases, the same guys I was working for, hourly. Yeah. And I'm making, I go from making $80,000 to making $200,000 off of a 4-month gig. I might not get the benefits, but hey, man, I'm good with that. I'm okay with that for right now. And you get enough of those, and you're making more money than you ever made in your life, and you're your own boss, and you can tell, you can talk to the people who you want to work with, and who you tell people you don't want to work with to go pound salt. That's all you have to do. Yep. And so there's that. And for me, it was a little different because it was a gradual thing. I went from the gig economy into what I'm doing right now. And really, this last year, I haven't done hardly anything. I've done like 2 events for the liquor industry, and that was like back in the summertime. And like now, because
they're losing their luster for you now, or
well, not so much losing the luster. It would be nice to get back to that again, but like I'm at the point right now where it's like one of the reasons why I took my time with the book is because I could. Like I didn't have other things that I had that were preoccupying me that pushed me on, and that's why this has been one of the most involved, most deep, I think, books that I've ever written. And as a result of COVID, as a result of not having those responsibilities that I had before, which is kind of nice. So I'm actually in sort of uncharted territory here. All right, guys, let's break. I know.
I'll just add my 2 cents, if you don't mind, on the end there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because like my thing is, like, I always treated this gig as kind of a hobby. It makes a little bit of change, but it covers my whiskey fund for the year. Let's leave it at that, so you can kind of judge from that.
Doing this, I didn't love it. Put it that way.
Yeah, like I enjoy doing this. Like I enjoy doing the podcast. I enjoy writing. I enjoy doing the books, etc. So it's something that's fun for me. But like I had the conversation, and whenever my girl asks, like, okay, like right now I work full time, and I put in some extra overtime on that because I've got some really good bonuses lined up. I'm the full owner of one business, and I'm buying into a second one. And all my girl asks me is like, okay, if you're going to do this, does this contribute towards me becoming a real housewife? If I go, yes, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah. I would love to get to a point where like I could probably do this now, but my wife still works. She's a medical professional. And the reason why she still works is because it's medical insurance, basically. Like, do I want to?
Yeah, you're American.
And do I want to? Yeah. I know, right? I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. It's like she could stop working, but she works at the hospital, right? So we got really good medical insurance through the hospital. But I could say, hey, stop working, and we'll pay $2,600 a month for Cobra or something like that. I'm like, well, if she works part-time, so okay, good. As long as you got benefits, we're good to go. And so that's how we work it out right now. But I would love to get to the point where I would just like, okay, just stop working, and we can.
Yeah, but what would she do? She'd be bored.
Yeah. Shh.
Well, no, she could join in on Rollo's podcast every week.
Me. I can't. I'm too busy fucking around on the line.
Here's some Rockaware heels. I need you to dress in something skimpy and put them up behind me for the camera. Not mentioning anybody in particular who does that.
I could do an Obliged American and have her tie my shoes on video.
Well, yeah. Dude, imagine like the crossover site, The Rational Couple.
Oh no, that would be Athol K. That I've seen where that path leads.
Yeah, dude, one girl, like wasn't it your tweet, Carl, about the D&D
There we go. That's what we'll call it: hoops and heels.
Hoops and heels. Yeah, Carl, you had that tweet just today where we were talking about that. Guys are like, well, if guys just formed a cartel and stop simping for girls, we'd fix the world. It's like, dude, you lost your D&D group because 4 out of 10 at best came into it.
Yep.
Yeah, you got to be careful, Rollo, like yawning and stuff on camera. I noticed like the biggest thing on Twitter now is taking a screenshot of whatever the goofiest still frame of you is, and that's their account.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Well, dude, like Clary owns the market on that.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah. No, but Clary owns the market on that one. Like that dude makes more retarded faces in like half an hour of podcasting than most of us do after like 18 months of day drinking in Magaluf.
But it's Aaron. But it's Aaron. Come on.
Oh yeah, I like Aaron.
This has been fun. Thanks for joining me today. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. I know I did. Carl, what do you got going on? I'll just throw it around. What do you got going on, man?
Well, other than the 2 products I'm working on, it's blacklabellogic.com. That's the blog. 2 books on Amazon, Gendernomics and Gendernomics Building Value, and my Twitter feed, which is mostly shit posting and triggering trans.
There you go. Brian, what's going on with you?
Dude, right now I've been slowing down the sidebar series till the end of the year. This is my time for me. So it's just like 1 or 2 videos a week, plus Red Morning with Carl, 9 o'clock on Saturday, just before, Rule Zero. You get up, have your coffee, do your workout, and listen to us ramble on about some very practical stuff. Fuck Vials, the Kindles. We just crossed like the Rubicon, over 1,000 sales, which is awesome. It's only been out since April. Kindle's out, paperback's out. The special edition one's not for sale anymore, so it's unfortunate there, but you're going to see me look at it in the back. The audiobook, I just finished the work on that. Dear God, that was a slog, and learning a whole bunch of different skills. But it's pending audio review. It's been in there since the 20th of October, and they say it'll be approved within 30 days. So
Yeah,
it looks like by next week.
It take a lot longer.
Yeah. So, it should be good. I'm confident that I'll be able to get it through on the first review, but it should be in there by Christmas. So if you guys aren't the type to do much reading and you want to hear it, it's a very simple story. 15 examples from pickup when I was a sailor and the lessons that I learned from them. And you'll kind of get an overarching narrative. Nobody seemed to caught on to what the Easter egg narrative is that underlies the whole thing. So I'm kind of waiting for somebody to send that one to me. I'll send them a free copy of like the special edition book. That's the one you can see there. And in the chat, Garage, he's actually the artist that did that one. So check out his stuff if you're curious about it too.
Cool beans. All right. Yeah. Anyways, I will be, I'm considering I may or may not be on Wednesday's show, simply because we have, Thanksgiving's the next day and I got family in town. So I might not be doing Wednesday. If I do Wednesday's show, it will be maybe an hour and a half at the max. So I'm deciding. That will depend on who's here and what's going on.
If you take that week off, they're going to forget about you.
I know. They might just forget all about me. But what they won't forget about is that book 4, The Rational Male Religion, will be out this month. So I will. People keep asking me, well, when are we going to know? I'm like, well, just trust me. When it's time, you will definitely know. You're not going to miss it. In fact, I've been throwing out a lot of memes lately, like sort of like teaser memes lately on Twitter. So that's why I've been doing that. So it is coming very soon. Definitely before December. So just put that. I'll give you at least some kind of a timeline. Check that out. Audiobook will be trailing behind it probably into January or February, depending on how long it takes Sam Bada to do the read. But other than that, that's all I have going. Rule Zero, of course, is Saturdays at 11:30 a.m. And I believe it's either you, Ryan, or it is Rich.
Yeah, well, we'll see if he gets in. I know he's always like hit or miss with his schedule. So
cool. All right, guys. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you guys